"Ma'am, I saw your husband yesterday," said the poor boy to the businesswoman who was crying at the funeral. Samantha Carter felt the tears streaming down her face as she clutched the black handkerchief tightly between her trembling fingers. The closed casket before her seemed like a cruel lie, a farce she still couldn't accept. Michael had been missing for 3 weeks, and now everyone insisted he was inside, that he had been found. "Pam, are you okay?" A child's voice cut through her thoughts. Samantha lifted her eyes and saw a boy of about 12, wearing a worn beige shirt and patched pants. His messy brown hair and something in his light eyes showed a maturity beyond his years. He stood beside her, a worried expression on his thin face. Samantha tried to speak, but the words were lost in a sob. The boy stepped closer, gently touching her arm. Other people stood around, dressed in black, whispering condolences she barely heard. Greenwood Cemetery, in the Upper East Side of New York City, was filled with old headstones and trees swaying in the cold morning wind. "Ma'am, I saw your husband yesterday," the boy said quietly, just for her to hear. Samantha stopped crying instantly. Her whole body stiffened, and she stared straight into the boy's eyes, searching for signs of a lie or confusion. "What did you say?" she asked hoarsely. "I saw him yesterday afternoon near the train station. He was talking to a man in a blue suit," the boy repeated, glancing around to make sure no one else was listening. "That's impossible," Samantha whispered, feeling the world spin around her. "You must be mistaken, sweetheart. My husband, he's..." She pointed to the casket, but the words wouldn't come. For 3 weeks, everyone had searched for Michael, his company, his family, his friends. No one knew where he was until the news came yesterday. A body had been found in the Hudson River, wearing the same clothes Michael had on the day he disappeared. "I know him, Ma'am. He always gave me coins when he passed by my corner. He has a small scar here," the boy pointed to his own left eyebrow, "and he always wore that gold watch that shines in the sun." A shiver ran down Samantha's spine. It was true. Michael had a small scar on his left eyebrow from a childhood accident, and the gold watch was an heirloom from his father, which he never took off. "How do you know that?" she asked, gripping the boy's arm. "Because I see everything on the street, Ma'am. My name's Tommy, and I watch the cars in front of Old Joe's bakery. Your Michael always stops there to buy bread." Samantha knew the bakery. It was 2 blocks from her home in Brooklyn Heights. Michael did go there every morning before work. But how could this boy have seen Michael yesterday if he was supposedly dead for 3 weeks? "Tommy," Samantha said, gripping the boy's shoulders firmly. "Are you absolutely sure about what you're saying?" "Yes, Ma'am." He looked different, thinner, and had a beard he didn't have before, but it was him. He even had that habit of running his hand through his hair when he's nervous. Samantha's heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. Michael did have a habit of running his fingers through his hair when he was anxious or worried. It was a tic she knew well after 15 years of marriage. The people around them began moving toward the gravesite. The priest was saying his final prayers, but Samantha couldn't focus on anything but the boy's words. If Michael was alive, why hadn't he come home? Why had he let her suffer like this? "Mom, aren't you going with them?" Tommy asked, noticing that Samantha remained still while everyone else followed the procession. "Tommy," Samantha said, kneeling to meet the boy at eye level, "if you really saw my husband, you need to show me where." "Can you do that?" The boy nodded seriously. "I can. But do you believe me?" Samantha looked one last time at the coffin being carried. Inside it was supposedly the man she loved, but now she had terrible doubts. During the 3 weeks of searching, she had felt deep in her heart that Michael was alive. It was an intuition she couldn't explain, a sense that he simply couldn't have left this way. "I believe you," she finally said, "but we need to go now, before it's too late." Samantha stood up, ignoring the curious glances of relatives, who noticed her absence from the procession. Her sister-in-law Rachel waved from afar, pointing toward the grave, but Samantha gestured that she would catch up later. "Come on, Tommy. Can you take me to where you saw my husband?" "I can, ma'am, but it's kind of far from here. We'll have to take the bus." Samantha opened her black purse and checked her money. She had enough for the fares and a little extra. Her mind was racing, but a steely determination had taken hold of her. If there was even the slightest chance Michael was alive, she had to investigate. As they walked toward the cemetery gate, Samantha noticed people starting to whisper and point in her direction. Rachel, her sister-in-law, came running toward them. "Samantha, where are you going? The burial is happening now." Rachel shouted, catching up to them near the gate. "Rachel, I need to take care of something urgent," Samantha replied, avoiding her sister-in-law's gaze. "Take care of what? Your husband is being buried, and you're leaving. How with some strange boy?" Tommy shrank back a little, clearly uncomfortable. Samantha realized she had to be careful. If she told Rachel what the boy had said, she'd probably be considered crazy or in shock. "It's related to the company. An emergency came up that can't wait," Samantha lied. "What kind of emergency is more important than Michael's? Funeral?" Samantha felt her irritation grow. Rachel had always been nosy, always questioning her and her brother's decisions. In their 15 years of marriage, she'd never missed a chance to criticize or give unsolicited advice. "Rachel, please, I have to go. Can you explain to the others?" "Samantha, you're in shock. You shouldn't be alone right now. Alone leaving with strangers," Rachel said, eyeing Tommy suspiciously. "I'm fine. And Tommy isn't a stranger. He knew Michael," Samantha replied, realizing too late she'd revealed more than she should have. "What do you mean he knew Michael?" Rachel asked, suspicious. Samantha felt panic rising. She had to get out before things got worse. "I'll explain later, Rachel. Please just tell them I had to handle something urgent." Before her sister-in-law could respond, Samantha took Tommy's hand and hurried toward the street. She could hear Rachel calling her name behind her, but she didn't turn back. "Mom, why didn't you tell her the truth?" Tommy asked as they walked down the sidewalk. "Because she wouldn't believe it. Grown-ups sometimes don't believe things that seem impossible," Samantha explained, stopping at the bus stop. "But you believe me?" Samantha looked at the boy. There was something in his eyes that felt honest. In her career as a businesswoman, she'd learned to read people, to spot lies and truths. Tommy wasn't lying. "Yes, I believe you, but I need to see for myself." The bus arrived a few minutes later. It was an old, noisy vehicle with worn-out blue plastic seats. Samantha paid for both tickets, and they sat near the window. As the bus moved through the streets of New York City, she stared out the window, trying to process everything that was happening. If Michael was really alive, why had he disappeared? They had their marital problems, like any couple, but nothing that justified such a drastic action. In recent months, he had been more distant, working late and leaving on weekends without clear explanations, but Samantha had chalked it up to work stress. "Auntie, is your husband's company really big?" Tommy asked, interrupting her thoughts. "Why do you ask?" "Because the man talking to him looked important. He wore an expensive suit and had a really nice black car." Samantha felt another chill run down her spine. Michael was a partner at a business consulting firm he had founded with 2 college friends. The company had grown a lot in recent years, and they worked with major corporations in the city. Could his disappearance be related to business? "Tommy, do you remember anything else about that man in the blue suit?" "He was older than your Michael, had gray hair and glasses. And he looked angry, you know. He was talking quietly, but you could tell he was upset." Samantha tried to think of who it could be. She knew most of Michael's clients and partners, but the description didn't match anyone specific. And Michael, how did he seem? Scared or worried? "Well, he looked nervous, kept glancing around like he was afraid someone might see him there." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, back to the story. The bus stopped at the Long Island City train station. Tommy stood up and motioned for Samantha to follow. "This is it, Auntie. This is where I saw them." Samantha stepped off the bus and looked around. The station was busy, with hundreds of people coming and going from the trains. It was the kind of place where it would be easy to hide or meet without being noticed. "Where exactly did you see them?" Samantha asked. "Over there near that cafe." Tommy pointed to a small shop on the side of the station. "They were talking really quietly, and then the man in the suit handed something to your Michael." "Handed him what?" "Looked like an envelope. Not too big, but thick." Samantha's stomach twisted. An envelope could contain money, documents, or anything else. If Michael was really alive and secretly meeting with strangers, it meant something very serious was going on. "Let's go to the cafe," she said. "Maybe someone there saw something." They walked over to the shop. It was a simple place, with a few plastic tables and a counter where a middle-aged man was making coffee and sandwiches. There weren't many customers at that time of the morning. "Excuse me," Samantha approached the attendant. "Do you work here every day?" "Yes, ma'am. How can I help you? I was wondering if yesterday afternoon you saw two men talking near here. One younger, dark-haired, around 40, and the other older in a blue suit." The man stopped wiping the counter and looked at Samantha carefully. "Are you related to either of them?" "I'm the younger one's wife. I'm trying to find him for a very important reason." The attendant hesitated for a moment, glancing around as if checking if anyone was listening. "Look, ma'am, I don't usually get involved in customers' business, but those two men stood out yesterday." "Why?" "Because they were arguing. Not loudly, but you could tell it was a tense conversation. The younger one seemed to be arguing against something the older one wanted him to do." Samantha felt her heart race again. Michael was involved in something that made him uncomfortable, something he didn't want to do. "Did you hear anything specific from their conversation?" "Not much, but I heard the older one say something about a deadline and consequences, and the younger one said he needed more time to think." "Did they leave together?" "No, the older one left first, and the younger one stayed here for about 20 more minutes, drinking coffee and looking at his phone. He seemed really worried." Samantha thanked the man and walked away with Tommy. Her mind was racing, trying to piece together the puzzle. Michael was alive, secretly meeting with someone, and caught up in something that made him nervous. But why hadn't he come home? "Auntie, are we going to look for him?" Tommy asked. "Yes, we are, but first I need to understand what's going on." Samantha took out her phone and called Michael's office. Kathy, his secretary of over 5 years, answered. "Kathy, it's me, Samantha. I need you to tell me something very important. Did Michael schedule any unusual meetings in the last few weeks? Any new clients or strange situations?" "Mrs. Carter, it's so good to hear your voice. About Mr. Michael, well, in the last 2 weeks before he disappeared, he was acting really strange." "How so?" "He cancelled several important meetings and started seeing people I'd never met before. Men in suits, always very serious, and he told me not to log the meetings in his calendar." Samantha felt a chill in her stomach. Michael had always been meticulous with business, keeping detailed records of everything. "Kathy, do you remember anything about those men?" "One of them was older, with grey hair and glasses. Very well dressed, but he had an unfriendly face. He came here 3 times in the last week before Mr. Michael disappeared. It matched the description Tommy had given." Samantha thanked Kathy and hung up. "Tommy, I need your help. You said you see everything on the street where you work. Did Michael usually pass by there every day?" "He used to, Auntie. But in the week before he disappeared, he stopped coming around. I even thought it was weird because he always said hello to me." Samantha began piecing together a timeline in her head. In the weeks before his disappearance, Michael had changed. His routine was meeting with strangers at the office and had stopped going to his usual places. He was definitely involved in something serious. "Let's go to my house," Samantha said. "I need to check something in Michael's papers." They took another bus back to Brooklyn Heights. During the ride, Samantha tried calling Michael's business partners, but both calls went straight to voicemail. It was strange considering it was a weekday during business hours. Samantha's house was on a quiet street with old, well-kept homes. It was a 2-story house built in the 1980s, with a small front garden. Michael and Samantha had bought it right after getting married, and over the years they'd made renovations to make it just the way they wanted. "Come in, Tommy," Samantha said, opening the front door. The inside of the house reflected the couple's refined taste. Dark wood furniture, paintings on the walls, and plants scattered throughout created a warm atmosphere. But now, 3 weeks after Michael's disappearance, the house felt abandoned and sad. Samantha went straight to Michael's office on the 2nd floor. It was a small but well-organized room with a wooden desk, shelves full of books and files, and a computer he used for working at home. Tommy, can you stay in the living room while I look for a few things here? Sure, Aunt Samantha. Samantha Carter began searching through Michael's documents. She knew his organization well. Important contracts were in a blue folder, personal documents in a green one, and miscellaneous papers in specific drawers. But when she opened the desk, she noticed several empty drawers that had once been full of files. Michael had taken important documents with him before disappearing. She turned on his computer, but realized he had deleted his browsing history and emptied the recycle bin. For someone who had vanished suddenly, Michael had taken very specific precautions to leave no trace. Samantha found the number for Michael's company in her contacts and called the main office directly. Carter Consulting Group, good morning, answered a woman's voice she didn't recognize. Good morning, this is Samantha Carter. I'd like to speak with David or Richard. Mrs. Carter, Mr. David, and Mr. Richard are on a business trip. Can I take a message? A trip? Where did they go? They didn't disclose their destination, ma'am. They only said they'd be away for an indefinite period. A fresh wave of suspicion washed over Samantha. David, Henry, and Richard had been Michael's partners since the company was founded 10 years ago. Never before had they traveled without sharing their destination or return date, and it was far too coincidental that they were gone right now. When did they leave? Samantha asked. Last Monday, ma'am, right after what happened to Mr. Michael. So they had left 2 days after Michael's supposed body was found in the river. Samantha hung up with a growing sense that she had uncovered something important. She went back to the living room where Tommy sat on the couch, looking around curiously. Tommy, I need to ask you a very serious question. When you saw Michael yesterday, what time was it? It was late afternoon, Aunt Samantha, around 5 o'clock. And how did he leave? By car, train, on foot? He got on the train, Aunt Samantha. I saw him board the one that goes to the Upper East Side. Samantha knew that train line well. If Michael had taken the train to the Upper East Side, there were several possible destinations, but one stood out to her, the Astoria station, where there was a hotel they often used for discreet business meetings. Tommy, would you come with me to check a place? It might be dangerous, but I really need to find my husband. The boy nodded without hesitation. Of course, Aunt Samantha. I want to help. Samantha grabbed her purse, making sure she had enough cash for a taxi if needed. She also took her fully charged phone and left a note on the kitchen table in case someone came looking for her. They left the house and walked to the nearest subway station. As they walked, Samantha explained to Tommy that they were going to check a hotel where Michael might be staying. Why would he hide in a hotel, Aunt Samantha? I don't know, Tommy. But something must have happened that made him feel he couldn't come home. Maybe he's scared, or maybe he's protecting someone. Protecting who? Maybe me, Samantha answered, realizing for the first time that this could be a real possibility. If Michael was involved in something dangerous, perhaps he had disappeared to protect her. It would be just like him to do something like this without consulting her, making decisions alone to protect the people he loved. On the subway, Samantha kept thinking about the past few months. Michael had indeed been more distant, but she had chalked it up to work stress. Now, looking back, she could see signs that had seemed normal at the time. He had started leaving home earlier and coming back later. She had changed some of the locks in the house without a convincing explanation, and she had started keeping cash instead of using cards for everything, as she always did. Auntie, are you okay? Tommy asked, noticing she looked deep in thought. I'm fine. Just trying to make sense of some things that are starting to add up. The train stopped at the Astoria station. They got off and walked through the neighborhood streets until they reached the Hope Hotel, a simple but clean establishment Michael had used a few times for meetings with clients who preferred discretion. Good afternoon, Samantha addressed. The receptionist, a middle-aged woman with her hair in a bun. I'd like to know if Mr. Michael Carter is staying here. The receptionist checked the computer system. We don't have any guests by that name, ma'am. Samantha had expected this answer. If Michael was really hiding, he'd surely be using a fake name. Could you check if there's a guest who arrived last week? A man around 40 with dark hair. Ma'am, I can't give out information about our guests. It's hotel policy. Samantha realized she'd have to get creative. She looked around. and noticed a restaurant on the ground floor of the hotel with tables overlooking the lobby. "Let's get something there," she said to Tommy, pointing to the restaurant. They sat at a strategic table where they could watch who came and went. From the hotel, Samantha ordered coffee for herself and a soda for Tommy. "What do we do now, Auntie?" "We wait and watch. If Michael is here, he'll show up eventually." They stayed in the restaurant for nearly 2 hours, observing the hotel's activity. Samantha was starting to think she might be in the wrong place when she spotted a familiar figure coming down the stairs. It was Michael. He was thinner, as Tommy had said, with stubble that slightly altered his appearance. He wore simple clothes, nothing like the suits he usually wore, and had a cap that partially hid his face. Samantha's heart raced. Michael was alive, he was okay, and he was just a few feet away. All the emotions of the past few days swirled together: relief, anger, confusion, and love. "It's him," she whispered to Tommy. "I told you, Auntie. It's really your Michael." Samantha stood up from the table, but Michael was already heading out the hotel's main door. She ran after him, leaving money on the table to cover the bill. "Michael!" she called out when she reached the sidewalk. He turned, and when he saw her, his expression changed completely. It was a mix of shock, fear, and something that looked like relief. "Samantha," he said, frozen on the sidewalk. "How did you find me?" She stepped closer, but stopped a few feet away. Now that she'd found him, she wasn't sure what to say or how to react. "Michael, I thought you were dead. We've been looking for you for 3 weeks. This morning was your funeral." "My funeral?" Michael seemed genuinely surprised. "They found a body in the river. They said it was you." Michael ran a hand through his hair, that nervous gesture Samantha knew so well. "Samantha, I can explain, but it's not safe here. You need to leave." "Leave?" "Michael, you vanished 3 weeks ago. You left me thinking you were dead, and now you want me to just walk away." "It's not like that, Samantha. It's just..." He glanced around as if checking if anyone was watching them. "It's complicated, really complicated." "Then explain. We have the rest of our lives to talk about complicated things." Michael looked at Tommy, who had stayed back, watching the conversation. "Who's this boy?" "He's the one who helped me find you. Tommy saw you yesterday talking to a man in a blue suit." Michael's expression shifted again, this time to something like panic. "Does anyone else know you found me?" "No, just the two of us." "Michael, what's going on?" He moved closer to her, speaking softly. "Samantha, I got mixed up in something very serious, very dangerous, and I can't come home now because it would put you at risk." "What kind of thing?" "It's the company's business. David and Richard, they dragged me into something I didn't understand at first. By the time I figured it out, it was too late to back out." Samantha felt a chill in her stomach. Michael's partners had involved him in something illegal. What exactly did they do? "It's money laundering, Samantha. The company is being used to clean money for businesses dodging taxes. Millions of dollars flow through our books every month." Samantha's legs went weak. "Money laundering was a federal crime with severe prison sentences. And you were part of it?" "At first, no, they hid it from me for months. But when I found out, there were already documents with my signature, contracts I'd signed without knowing what they really were." "Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you get help?" "Because the man in the blue suit that Tommy saw is an accountant who works for very powerful people. He told me if I tried to leave or expose them, you'd get hurt." Samantha felt the world spin. Michael had disappeared to protect her. "So you just decided to vanish?" "I was trying to find a way to fix this without putting you in danger. That's why I faked my own non-disappearance, to buy time while I gathered evidence against David and Richard." "And did you?" "I'm getting close. But they found out I was investigating. That's why that body showed up in the river yesterday. They wanted everyone to think I was dead to stop the investigation." Samantha tried to process everything. Her husband was alive but tangled in a money laundering scheme. His partners were criminals who'd tried to fake his death. And there were dangerous people who could hurt her if they knew she'd discovered the truth. "Michael, we need to go to the police." "We can't, Samantha. At least not yet. I need more evidence, and I need to make sure you'll be safe. And in the meantime, you'll keep hiding. For now, yes, until I can prove everything that happened." Samantha looked at Tommy, who was listening with wide eyes. Tommy, do you understand what's happening? I get it, ma'am. Your husband's trying to catch the bad guys, but he has to hide to protect you. That's right, Michael said, nodding at the boy. You're very smart, Tommy. Michael, Samantha said, if you can't come home, at least let me help. I don't want you to face this alone. Samantha, it's too dangerous. If they find out you know I'm alive, then we'll be careful. But I won't let you do this by yourself. Michael hesitated for a long moment, glancing around the busy street. All right, but we need rules. No direct calls, no meetings at our house or places where they might see us together. How will we communicate? Michael looked at Tommy. Tommy, would you be our messenger? It'd be risky, but I'd pay you well. The boy nodded eagerly. Sure. I can carry messages between you two. Perfect, Michael said. Samantha, you keep going to work like normal. Stick to your routine. Tommy will pass information between us. And when I have enough evidence, we'll take everything to the authorities at once. Samantha agreed, but she still had questions. Michael, how have you survived these 3 weeks? What money? I had an emergency account you didn't know about, small, but enough to keep me going for a while. Another secret. Samantha began to wonder how many other things Michael had kept from her over the years. And David and Richard? Where are they? They fled abroad on Monday. They're probably in some country without an extradition treaty. Samantha felt anger rising. Michael's partners had run away and left him to deal with the consequences alone. They completely abandoned you? Worse than that, they tried to frame me before they fled. They planted fake documents that make me look like the leader of the scheme. The situation was even more complicated than Samantha had imagined. Michael wasn't just hiding from criminals, he was being set up by his own partners. We have to separate now, Michael said, checking his watch. I have a meeting at 6 with someone who might have important information. What kind of meeting? A former employee of the company who claims to have documents proving David and Richard were behind everything from the start. Samantha felt a flicker of hope. If they could prove Michael was a victim and not the leader of the scheme, maybe they could fix this. Where's the meeting? At Central Mall in the food court. It's a public, safe place. Can I come with you? Samantha, no. If someone sees us together, then Tommy and I will stay far back just watching. If anything goes wrong, we'll be there to help. Michael hesitated but finally agreed. All right, but stay far away. And if you see anything suspicious, leave immediately. They worked out the details. Michael would arrive first and sit near the Burger Palace. Samantha and Tommy would stay by the movie theater, where they could observe without being noticed. One last thing, Michael said. If anything happens to me, promise me you'll get a lawyer right away and tell the police everything. Nothing's going to happen to you, Samantha replied, but she promised. Michael walked away, and Samantha watched until he disappeared into the crowd. After 3 weeks thinking he was dead, seeing him alive felt almost unreal. Auntie, what do we do now? Tommy asked. We'll go home, have lunch, and then head to the mall for that meeting. On the way back, Samantha tried to process everything she'd learned. Michael was alive, but his life had become a nightmare. He was being hunted by criminals, framed by his own partners, and forced into hiding to protect her. At home, Samantha made a simple lunch for herself and Tommy. The boy ate hungrily, but she could barely touch her food. Her mind was busy planning their next steps. Tommy, do you have family? Someone who worries when you don't come home? I have a grandma, Auntie. She's taken care of me since they left. But she works nights cleaning offices, so she'll only miss me if I'm not home by dawn. And she doesn't worry about you working on the streets. She doesn't like it, but we need the money. Her pension isn't enough. Samantha's heart ached. Tommy was just a child but already carried adult responsibilities. When this is all over, I'll find you a better job, something safer. Thanks, Auntie, but I like working. It makes me feel useful. After lunch, they rested for an hour before heading to the mall. Samantha chose plain clothes and asked Tommy to do the same. They needed to blend in. Central Mall was about a half-hour bus ride from Samantha's place. It was a middle-class mall, always busy, especially in the late afternoon. They arrived at 5:30 and went straight to the movie theater area. From there, they had a clear view of the food court without being easily spotted. At exactly 6, Samantha saw Michael enter the food court. He was wearing a cap and sunglasses, but she recognized him instantly by the way he walked. He sat at a table near the Burger Palace as agreed and began looking around discreetly. 15 minutes passed and no one showed up. "Maybe the person is running late," whispered Tommy. "Maybe," Samantha replied, but she was starting to feel uneasy. Another 15 minutes passed. Michael was visibly nervous, running his fingers through his hair and checking his watch constantly. That's when Samantha noticed 2 men in suits entering the food court. They weren't together, but they moved in a coordinated way, positioning themselves on opposite sides of the area. One of them was the grey-haired man with glasses Tommy had described. "Tommy," Samantha whispered urgently, "do you see those 2 men in suits?" "I do, ma'am. One of them is the one who was talking to your Michael yesterday." Samantha felt panic take over. It was a trap. The supposed informant had lured Michael to a public place where the criminals could confront him without raising too much suspicion. Michael still hadn't noticed the 2 men. He was focused on searching for someone who would never come. "We need to warn him," said Samantha, standing up. "Ma'am, it's dangerous. If they see you, I can't let them take Michael." Samantha started heading toward the food court, but Tommy grabbed her arm. "Ma'am, there's a better way. I can go over and warn him. I'm just a kid. They won't suspect me." Samantha realized Tommy was right. A boy would go unnoticed much more easily than she would. "All right, but be quick and careful." Tommy ran off toward the food court. Samantha watched him approach Michael's table and whisper something in his ear. Michael's reaction was immediate. He glanced discreetly around and spotted the 2 men. Michael stood up calmly, as if he had just finished eating, and began walking toward the mall exit. The 2 men in suits immediately started following him, keeping their distance. Samantha ran after them, trying to stay hidden in the crowd of shoppers. Michael left the mall through the main entrance and began walking quickly down the street. The 2 men were right behind him, and Samantha could see they were closing in. That's when Michael did something unexpected. He dashed into a subway station. Samantha followed, passing the 2 men who hesitated for a moment before entering the station as well. On the subway platform, hundreds of people were waiting for the train. Michael blended into the crowd, and Samantha lost sight of him. The 2 men in suits were also searching for him, walking along the platform and scanning the crowd. The train arrived, and a flood of passengers entered and exited the car. In the confusion, Samantha couldn't tell if Michael had boarded the train or was still on the platform. When the train pulled away, she looked around and saw neither Michael nor the 2 men. They had all disappeared. Tommy appeared beside her, panting, "Ma'am, I lost everyone in the crowd." "Me too. Let's wait for the next train and try to find Michael." They took the next train and rode around the city for 2 hours, going from station to station, searching for Michael. But there was no sign of him. When they finally returned home, it was almost 10 at night. Samantha was exhausted and worried. Michael had escaped the 2 men, but now she had no way to contact him. "Tommy, can you stay here tonight? It's too late for you to go home alone." "Sure, ma'am. I'll call my grandma and let her know." Samantha set up a place for Tommy to sleep on the living room sofa and went to her bedroom. But she couldn't sleep. She kept wondering where Michael was, whether he had managed to escape the men, and when she might see him again. The next morning, Samantha woke up to Tommy shaking her shoulder. "Auntie, there's a man at the door asking for you." Samantha stood up quickly and went to the window. At the door stood a man in a dark suit she didn't recognize. "Tommy, go to the back of the house and stay out of sight," Samantha whispered. She went downstairs and opened the door, keeping the security chain on. "Good morning, how can I help you?" "Mrs. Carter, my name is Investigator Kevin. I need to ask you a few questions about your husband." "I already answered all possible questions for the police last week." "New information has come to light, Mom. May I come in?" Samantha hesitated. Something about this man didn't inspire trust. "I'd prefer we talk right here." "What kind of new information?" "Information about your husband's business activities before his disappearance. There are suspicions of irregularities in his company." Samantha felt her stomach twist. If the authorities were already investigating the company, it meant the situation was even more serious than Michael had told her. "What kind of irregularities?" Mom, it would be better if we spoke privately. I have some photos I'd like to show you. Photos of what? The man pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. Photos of your husband with individuals known to the authorities, people involved in illegal activities. Samantha felt this man was trying to manipulate her, but she also wanted to see the photos. You can show them right here. The man opened the envelope and displayed several photographs. Samantha recognized Michael immediately, in conversation with men she didn't know, including the gray-haired man from the day before. Where were these taken? Various locations, ma'am. The timestamps show your husband has been meeting with these people for months. One photo showed Michael handing an envelope to the gray-haired man. It was the exact opposite of what he had told her. In the pictures, it looked like he was giving something, not receiving. Mrs. Carter, it's possible your husband hasn't been entirely truthful about his involvement in the company's dealings. Samantha felt the world spin again. Could Michael really have lied to her? Was he actually the leader of the money laundering scheme? What exactly do you want from me? We want your cooperation in locating your husband. There's evidence he may be hiding somewhere in the city. I already told you I don't know where he is. I thought he was dead. Ma'am, with all due respect, we know you had contact with your husband yesterday. Samantha's blood ran cold. How did they know that? I don't know what you're talking about. Mrs. Carter, you were seen at the Hope Hotel yesterday afternoon, and later at Central Mall in the evening, accompanied by a boy. Shortly after, your husband was spotted in the same locations. They had been followed. Samantha realized she had put Michael, Tommy, and herself in danger. If you cooperate with us, we can guarantee your safety, the man continued. But if you choose to protect a criminal, you could be considered an accomplice. I need time to think. Mom, time is running out. Your husband is involved in something very serious, and every day he remains at large, his situation and yours gets worse. Samantha closed the door and leaned against it, breathing heavily. Her mind was in turmoil. The photos showed Michael doing the exact opposite of what he had claimed. Had he lied about everything? Tommy appeared in the living room. Auntie, I heard the conversation. That man wasn't a real cop. How do you know? Because real cops always show their badge right away, and he said, Investigator Kevin, no last name. Cops always give their full name. Samantha realized Tommy was right. The man was likely one of the criminals trying to use her to get to Michael. Tommy, we need to get out of here. If they know where I live, it's not safe to stay. Where are we going? We're going to my sister's place. She lives in another neighborhood. Samantha packed a quick bag with some clothes and important documents. She also took all the money she had at home and put it in a separate purse. They left through the back door and walked through the neighborhood streets until they reached the main avenue, where they caught a taxi. Samantha's sister Jennifer lived in a small apartment in Queens. She was divorced and worked as an elementary school teacher. The two had always been close, especially after their parents' death. Samantha, what a surprise. Jennifer opened the apartment door. I thought you'd still be in mourning. Jennifer, I need to tell you something very important, and I need your help. Samantha told her sister the whole story. Michael's disappearance, the funeral, meeting Tommy, the discovery that Michael was alive, and everything that had happened since then. Jennifer listened quietly, her eyes wide. Samantha, this sounds like something out of a movie. Are you sure that boy is telling the truth? I am, Jennifer. I saw Michael with my own eyes yesterday. And do you believe his story about the money laundering? Samantha hesitated. After seeing the photos, she had doubts herself. I don't know what to believe anymore, but I know he's in danger. And so am I. Jennifer looked at Tommy, who was sitting quietly on the couch. Tommy, are you sure you saw Samantha's Michael? Yes, Aunt Jennifer, and I'm sure that man who came to the house today wasn't a real cop. How do you know that? Tommy repeated his explanation about how real police behave. He's right, said Jennifer. I've worked with kids for 15 years, and we often deal with authorities. They always identify themselves properly. Samantha felt a little relief. If the man who had shown up at her house wasn't a cop, it meant the authorities weren't officially looking for Michael yet. Jennifer, can I stay here for a few days while I try to figure things out? Of course, Samantha, But you all need to be careful. If these people are really dangerous, we will be. And we'll try to find Michael again to clear everything up. They spent the rest of the day planning their next steps. Tommy offered to go back to the places where he'd seen Michael to try and find him again. "I can check the spots where he used to show up," said Tommy. "If he's still in the city, he'll turn up in one of those places eventually." Samantha agreed, but with conditions. "You're not going alone. I'll come with you, but I'll keep my distance, and at the first sign of danger, we leave." "And if we find Michael?" asked Jennifer. "We'll confront him with the photos and demand he tells us the whole truth," Samantha replied. The next morning, Samantha and Tommy set out to look for Michael. They started at the bakery where he used to buy bread, then went to the train station where Tommy had first seen him. At the bakery, the owner remembered Michael. "That young man hasn't been here in over a month," he said. "Always very polite, always bought the same kind of bread." "Did you notice any change in him in the weeks before he stopped coming?" "Now that you mention it, yes. He seemed worried, always looking around. And once I saw him talking on the phone, really nervous." "Do you remember when that was?" "About 2 weeks before he stopped showing up." This matched Michael's story about discovering the money laundering scheme a few weeks before disappearing. At the train station, they asked some street vendors if they'd seen Michael recently. "Oh, that guy with the gold watch," said a water vendor. "He came by the day before yesterday, but he looked very different. Thinner with a beard." "The day before yesterday, not yesterday?" "No, it was definitely the day before yesterday. I remember because it rained in the morning." Samantha and Tommy exchanged glances. If Michael had been there the day before, yesterday, not yesterday as Tommy had initially said, maybe he had a routine, showing up at that spot on specific days. "Does he usually come by here at the same time?" Samantha asked. "Always late afternoon, around 5, but not every day. About twice a week." They decided to come back at 5 to see if Michael would show up. While they waited, they went to a nearby restaurant for lunch. Samantha took the opportunity to call Kathy, Michael's secretary, from a payphone. "Kathy, it's me, Samantha. I need you to tell me if anyone has been to the office asking about me or Michael." "Mrs. Carter, I'm so glad you called. 2 men showed up here yesterday claiming to be investigators. They asked a lot of questions about Mr. Carter, and about you, too." "What kind of questions?" "They wanted to know if Mr. Carter had left any important documents here, if he usually worked with cash, things like that." "And you answered them?" "I said I didn't know anything. But they went through some things in his office. They rummaged through drawers and files." Samantha felt a surge of anger. The criminals were looking for evidence Michael might have gathered against them. "Kathy, did you find anything strange in the office after they left?" "Yes. There were papers scattered on the floor, like someone had searched for something. In a hurry. And the drawer where Mr. Carter kept his most important documents was broken into." "Did they take anything?" "I can't say for sure, Mrs. Carter. I didn't really know what he kept in there." Samantha thanked her and hung up. The criminals were desperately searching for evidence Michael might have against them. This confirmed he had indeed discovered something important. At 5 o'clock, they returned to the train station. Samantha positioned herself where she could observe without being seen, while Tommy stayed close to the spot where Michael usually appeared. 15 minutes later, Samantha saw a familiar figure walking toward the station. It was Michael, dressed in simple clothes and a cap that partially hid his face. He approached the same water vendor they had spoken to earlier and bought a bottle. During the exchange, Samantha noticed they exchanged a few more words than necessary for the purchase. The vendor was passing information to Michael. After receiving the water, Michael walked slowly through the station, as if waiting for someone. Samantha moved closer discreetly, staying hidden behind a pillar. That's when she saw Tommy approach Michael and speak to him. Michael glanced around and then subtly motioned for Samantha to come over. She approached, and the 3 of them gathered in a more secluded corner of the station. "Samantha, how did you find me here?" Michael asked. "We've been looking for you since yesterday. A man showed up at my house pretending to be an investigator." "What kind of man?" Samantha described the man and told him about the photos he had shown. Michael seemed even more worried. "Samantha, they're trying to use you to find me. It's not safe for you to be looking for me." "Michael, I need you to tell me the whole truth. In the photos that man showed, it looked like you were handing documents to those criminals, not investigating them. Michael sighed deeply. It's complicated, Samantha. Yes, I was involved in some transactions before I found out they were illegal. But once I realized, I started gathering evidence to prove I was a victim, not the leader. And did you get that evidence? I got some. It's all hidden in a safe place. What kind of evidence? Recordings of conversations with David and Richard, where they admit to deceiving me. Documents showing they forged my signature on several contracts, and bank records proving I never received any money from the scheme. Samantha felt a glimmer of relief. If Michael had evidence proving his innocence, maybe they could resolve the situation. Why haven't you turned this evidence over to the police yet? Because David and Richard have connections within the police. If I hand the evidence to the wrong person, it could disappear and I'll end up being the only one blamed. So what are we going to do? I'm trying to reach a federal prosecutor who handles money laundering cases, someone who can't be bought by criminals. And when will you make contact? I'm waiting for a response. The vendor over there, Michael discreetly pointed to the water cellar, is the cousin of a guy who knows the prosecutor. We're trying to arrange a safe meeting. Samantha understood why Michael had been appearing at the station regularly. He was using the vendor as a middleman to communicate with outside contacts. Michael, how much longer will this take? Hopefully, not much. Maybe a few days. And in the meantime? In the meantime, you need to stay away from home. They'll keep looking for you to get to me. Samantha mentioned she was staying at Jennifer's place. That's good, Michael said, but you both need to be very careful. These men are dangerous when they feel cornered. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. Tommy, who had stayed quiet during the conversation, suddenly tugged on Samantha's sleeve. Auntie, that man in the blue suit is coming this way. Samantha and Michael looked in the direction Tommy pointed. It was the gray-haired man they had seen at the mall the day before. You have to leave now, Michael urged. What about you? I know the station better than he does. I'll go out another way. Michael, how will we stay in touch? Tommy knows where to find me, but only in an emergency. Samantha wanted to protest, but she knew there was no time. The suited man was getting closer, and they had to separate quickly. Michael walked away casually toward the trains, while Samantha and Tommy hurried out through the station's main entrance. Outside, they boarded. The first bus that came, no matter where it was headed. Samantha just wanted to get as far from the station as possible. Tommy, do you think that man saw us? I don't know, Auntie, but he was definitely looking for someone. They got off after a few stops and took another bus back to Queens. During the ride, Samantha thought about everything Michael had told her. If he really had proof of his innocence, why was it taking so long to give it to the authorities? And why hadn't he trusted her from the start, involving her in this whole plan? Tommy, do you believe everything Michael said? I think he's telling the truth, Auntie, but I also think he's really scared. Scared of what? Scared that even with the evidence no one will believe him, or scared the criminals will do something to you. Samantha realized Tommy had a very mature understanding of the situation. Michael really did seem to be acting more out of fear than logic. When they arrived at Jennifer's apartment, she was watching the evening news. Samantha, you need to see this, Jennifer said, pointing at the TV. On the screen, the anchor was reporting on a federal police operation that had dismantled a money laundering scheme in New York City. The operation, called Clean Waters, resulted in the arrest of 15 people involved in money laundering through shell companies, said the news anchor. Samantha felt her heart race. Could the operation have any connection to Michael's company? The federal police reported that the scheme moved over $50 million in the last 2 years, using consulting and service companies to disguise the illicit origin of the money. The description matched exactly what Michael had told her about his business. Among those arrested are 2 businessmen who tried to flee the country last week but were intercepted at the international airport in New York City. Samantha and Tommy exchanged glances. It had to be David and Richard. The operation is still ongoing, and the police are searching for others involved in the scheme, including some who may still be at large. Samantha felt a mix of relief and worry. If David and Richard had been arrested, It meant Michael was right about them being the real leaders of the scheme, but it also meant the police were still looking for others involved, likely including Michael. "Jennifer, can you record what the reporter said? I need to show this to Michael." "Already did, Samantha. I thought you'd want to see it later." The phone at Jennifer's house rang. It was a number neither of them recognized. "Hello?" Jennifer answered. "Can I speak to Samantha Carter?" said a male voice on the other end. Jennifer looked at Samantha, who shook her head. "There's no Samantha here," Jennifer replied. "Ma'am, we know she's there. It's very important we speak to her." "Who is this?" "I'm the investigator who was at her house yesterday. We need to talk urgently." Jennifer hung up immediately. "Samantha, they know you're here." Samantha panicked. How had the criminals found out where she was? "We have to leave," Samantha said. "They could show up any minute." "Where do we go?" "To a hotel, somewhere they can't find us." Samantha packed a quick bag again, and Jennifer grabbed some essentials. They decided Jennifer shouldn't stay at the apartment either, at least for a few days. "Tommy, do you want to come with us or go back to your grandma's?" "I want to stay with you, Auntie. I want to help find the truth." They left the apartment and took a taxi to the city center. Samantha chose a small, discreet hotel where they could stay without drawing attention. At the hotel, they booked 2 adjacent rooms, one for Samantha and Tommy, the other for Jennifer. "Now what?" Jennifer asked. "We need to find Michael and tell him about the federal police operation. Maybe now he can turn himself in more safely. But how do we find him? Tommy knows where he usually shows up. We'll try some places tomorrow." That night, Samantha barely slept. Her mind was full of questions and worries. The federal police operation was a sign things were moving fast, but she didn't know if that was good or bad for Michael. The next morning, they had breakfast at the hotel and planned their day. "Tommy, besides the train station, where else does Michael usually go?" "There's a diner near the hotel where he was staying, and there's a newsstand where he always bought magazines. Let's start with the diner." They left the hotel and took the subway to the area near the Hope Hotel. The diner was small, just 2 blocks from the hotel. "Good morning," Samantha said to the diner owner. "Do you know a man around 40, dark-haired, who comes here often? He wears a gold watch and a cap." "Yeah, I know him," the man replied. "He comes here almost every day for breakfast. Very polite man, always leaves a tip." "Did you see him today?" "No, he didn't show up today, but he was here yesterday, and he seemed very nervous. He spent the whole time reading the newspaper and fiddling with his phone." "What time does he usually come?" "Always early in the morning, around 8 o'clock. Samantha checked her watch. It was 9:30. If Michael had kept to his routine, they had just missed him. "Do you know if he'll come back today?" "I don't know, ma'am, but if you'd like, you can wait. Sometimes he comes twice in the same day." Samantha decided they would stay at the diner for a few hours. They ordered coffee and sandwiches and sat at a table where they could see the street. 2 hours passed with no sign of Michael. "Let's try the newsstand," Samantha said. The newsstand was near the subway station. The vendor was an older man who knew many of his regular customers. "Ah, the guy with the gold watch," he said when Samantha described Michael. "He always buys news magazines here, but he hasn't shown up in 2 days. Did he say anything special the last time he came?" "He did. Said he might be traveling and wouldn't be around for a while." Samantha's stomach sank. If Michael was planning to leave the city, maybe he had given up on turning over the evidence and decided to run for good. Did he say where he was going? No, he didn't, but he bought a travel magazine about upstate New York. Upstate New York. Michael could be planning to hide in some small town where no one knew him. "Let's go back to the train station," Samantha said. "Maybe the water vendor knows something." At the station, they found the vendor in his usual spot. "Sir," Samantha approached him, "do you remember us from yesterday?" "I do, ma'am. Have you seen our friend since then?" The vendor looked around, checking if anyone was listening. "I have. He came by early this morning and said he was going away." "Did he say where?" "No, but he left this for you." The vendor handed Samantha a small envelope. She opened it. Inside was a handwritten note from Michael. "Samantha, things got too dangerous after yesterday's operation. The men looking for me are desperate and acting more aggressively. I need to leave the city for a few days until things calm down. The evidence is hidden in our special place. You know where it is. If anything happens to me, give everything to the federal prosecutor. I love you, Michael." Samantha read the e-sigh. Note 3 times, Michael had referred to "in our special place." She knew exactly where that was. A small cabin they had rented in Lake Placid for their honeymoon 15 years ago. It was a place only the two of them knew, one that held sentimental meaning for them. "Auntie, what does the note say?" Tommy asked. "Michael left the city, but he hid the evidence somewhere only I know." "Should we go get it?" "We will. But first, we need to go back to the hotel and plan the trip." They returned to the hotel, and Samantha told Jennifer everything. "Samantha, are you sure it's safe to go after this evidence?" "I'm not sure of anything, Jennifer. But if I don't do something, Michael will be running for the rest of his life." "What if it's a trap?" "It's a risk I'll have to take. That place really is special to us. Michael wouldn't hide the evidence there unless it was extremely important." "Lake Placid is almost 2 hours from here. Are you taking the bus?" "We'll rent a car. It'll be faster and safer." Samantha had a driver's license but rarely drove in the city. For a trip like this, it was necessary. They rented a small car from a nearby agency. She didn't use a credit card to avoid being tracked. She paid everything in cash. The trip to Lake Placid took 2.5 hours as Samantha drove carefully through the mountain curves. Along the way, she told Jennifer and Tommy about the cabin and the honeymoons she and Michael had spent there. "It was our special place," Samantha said. "We rented the same cabin every year on our anniversary. The owner was a very kind old man who always saved it for us." "And you think Michael really hid the evidence there?" "I'm sure of it. That place represents the happiest moments of our marriage. If he chose to hide something important there, it's for a very special reason." When they arrived in Lake Placid, Samantha drove straight to the area where the cabin was located. It was a more secluded spot, away from the town center, with houses scattered among trees and hills. The cabin was still there exactly as Samantha remembered. It was a small wooden structure with a porch and garden surrounded by pine trees. Samantha knocked on the door, but no one answered. She walked around the cabin and found a slightly open window. "Someone's been here recently," she said, noticing footprints in the dirt around the house. They climbed in through the window. The inside of the cabin was just as Samantha recalled: rustic furniture, a stone fireplace, and a cozy feeling that always made her feel at home. "Where would Michael have hidden something here?" Jennifer asked. Samantha thought for a moment. Knowing Michael, he'd choose a spot that meant something to both of them but was also secure. "The fireplace," Samantha said suddenly. "On our first honeymoon, Michael hid a gift for me behind a loose stone in the fireplace." She went to the fireplace and began examining the stones. After a few minutes, she found one that was slightly loose. When she removed it, she discovered a hollow space behind it. Inside was a large envelope and a flash drive. Samantha opened the envelope. It was full of documents, contracts, bank statements, printed emails, and several photographs. "Tommy, can you turn on that computer?" Samantha pointed to an old laptop on the table. Tommy powered on the computer and inserted the flash drive. The screen displayed several folders with audio and video files. Samantha clicked on one of the audio files. It was a recording of a conversation between Michael, David, and Richard. "Michael, you have no choice," David's voice said. "We're already in too deep. If you try to back out now, we'll all go down." "But I didn't know it was money laundering," Michael's voice replied. "You told me it was just consulting for overseas companies." "And you were naive enough to believe." "Fit," Richard said. "Now you've signed documents, attended meetings. If this comes out, you'll be just as guilty as we are." The recording went on for another 15 minutes, with David and Richard explaining in detail how the scheme worked and threatening Michael if he tried to expose them. "My God," Jennifer said. "This proves Michael was a victim, not an accomplice." Samantha opened more files. There were similar recordings as well as emails where David and Richard discussed how to involve Michael in the scheme without him realizing it at first. One email read, "Michael is the perfect partner for our operation. He has a good reputation, is clueless about international business, and will sign anything we put in front of him. if we frame it as a growth opportunity for the company. Michael had been gathering this evidence for months, Samantha said. He knew he'd need to defend himself. There were also documents showing Michael had never received extra money beyond his regular salary at the company. All the profits from the laundering scheme went straight to David and Richard. Auntie, this proves Michael was right about everything, Tommy said. Prove it. Now we need to take all this to the authorities. Samantha made copies of all the digital files on 2 different flash drives. She also took photos of the most important documents with her phone as a backup. Let's get out of here, she said. I have everything I need. They were leaving the cabin when Samantha heard the sound of cars approaching through the window. She saw 2 black cars coming up the road toward the cabin. Hide quick, she told Jennifer and Tommy. They hid behind the living room furniture. Samantha tucked all the evidence into her bag and waited. 2 men got out of the cars and walked toward the cabin. One of them was the gray-haired man she had seen before. We know you're in there, one of the men shouted. We just want to talk. Samantha stayed silent, hoping they would leave. Mrs. Carter, we found what your husband hid here, but we want to make a deal with you. Samantha realized they were lying. If they had already found the evidence, they wouldn't be there trying to negotiate. What kind of deal? Samantha shouted from inside the cabin. You hand over everything you found here, and we guarantee nothing will happen to your husband or you. And if I don't? Then things will get complicated for everyone, Samantha thought quickly. She had the evidence, but she was outnumbered. She needed a way to get out safely. I need guarantees, she shouted. How do I know you won't do anything to us after I hand over the documents? You'll just have to trust us. I don't. I want to talk to Michael first. There was silence outside for a few minutes. Michael isn't available right now, one of the men finally said. Samantha felt her blood run cold. What had they done to Michael? What does that mean? It means you'll have to make a decision without consulting anyone. Samantha could tell the men were growing impatient. She had to act fast. Fine, she shouted. I'll hand over the documents, but I want you to step away from the house first. That's not how this works, ma'am. You come out with the documents, hand them to us, and then everyone leaves in peace. Samantha whispered to Jennifer and Tommy, when I go out, wait 5 minutes and leave through the back window. Take the car and go to the nearest police station. Samantha, I won't leave you alone, Jennifer protested. No arguing, Jennifer. Someone has to make sure the evidence gets to the authorities. Samantha gave one of the flash drives to Jennifer and kept the other, along with the physical documents. If anything happens to me, give everything to the FBI. She stepped out of the cabin with empty hands, but the documents hidden in her bag. Where are the documents? The gray-haired man asked. They're here, Samantha showed the bag. But first I want to know what you did with Michael. Michael is fine, he's in a safe location. I don't believe you, I want to talk to him. The man signaled to the other, who took out a phone and dialed a number. Put him on, he said. A few seconds later, Samantha heard Michael's voice on the other end. Samantha, Samantha, is that you? Michael, are you okay? I am, but don't give them anything, Samantha. They'll... The call cut off abruptly. As you can see, your husband is fine, the man said. Now, the documents. Samantha knew she had no choice. She handed over the bag with the documents. Praying Jennifer had managed to escape with the copies. Very good, the man said, checking the contents of the bag. Now you'll come with us to a place where you can be reunited with your husband. That wasn't the deal. You said everyone would leave in peace. Plans change, Mom. Samantha realized she had walked into a trap. The men never intended to let her go. Where are you taking me? To a quiet place where we can talk better about the situation. Samantha was forced into one of the cars. During the ride, she tried to memorize the route they were taking, but the mountain roads were confusing and she quickly lost her bearings. After about an hour of travel, they arrived at an isolated house in the middle of the woods. It was an old building with barred windows and an abandoned appearance. Welcome to your new temporary home, said the gray-haired man sarcastically. Inside the house, Samantha was taken to a small room where she found Michael. He was sitting in a chair, his clothes dirty, looking like he hadn't slept well. Samantha! Michael stood up and hugged her. I told you not to give them anything. I needed to make sure you were okay, and now we're both trapped here. No, Michael. I brought copies of everything. Jennifer and Tommy have the evidence and should be taking it to the police right now. Michael seemed relieved. Then there's still hope. Michael, what do they want from us? They want time. With David and Richard in custody, they need to reorganize their scheme. And as long as we're here, we can't interfere with their plans. And after? Michael didn't answer, but his expression made it clear he was worried about what would happen next. Samantha and Michael spent the night in that room, guarded by two men who took turns at the door. They whispered about everything that had happened in the last few weeks. Samantha, I should have told you everything from the start, Michael said. It was my mistake trying to handle it alone. You were trying to protect me, but I ended up putting you in even more danger. Michael, when we get out of here, we'll do things differently. No more secrets between us. If we get out of here, Michael corrected. We will. Jennifer is smart and Tommy is sharp. They'll find a way to help us. The next morning, Samantha and Michael were awakened by the sound of helicopters overhead. Looks like our cavalry has arrived, Michael said, peering through the small window. The guards seemed nervous. Samantha could hear agitated conversations downstairs. Minutes later, loudspeakers began announcing, "This is the federal police. The house is surrounded. Come out with your hands up." Samantha felt a wave of relief. Jennifer had managed to reach the authorities and deliver the evidence. Michael and Samantha Carter, if you're in there, make yourselves known, the loudspeaker continued. We're here, Samantha shouted through the window. We're on the second floor. There was intense movement in the house. Samantha could hear the men arguing about what to do, but within minutes everything fell silent. The door was broken down by federal police agents. You're safe now, one of them said. We'll get you out of here. Samantha and Michael were escorted outside. There, Samantha saw Jennifer and Tommy talking to one of the officers. Jennifer! Samantha ran to hug her sister. How did you manage it? Tommy knew the Lake Placid area well. He remembered the route the cars took and guided the police here. Samantha looked at Tommy with admiration. How did you do that? I followed you from a distance when they took you from the cabin, Tommy said. I noted the route and the road signs. You followed us? That was so dangerous. I knew you'd need help. And my grandma always said a clever child is one who observes everything. One of the federal police agents approached Samantha and Michael. Mr. and Mrs. Carter, we need you to come with us to give your statements. But first, I want to thank you for your cooperation. The evidence you've gathered will help completely dismantle this money laundering scheme. What will happen to Michael? Asked Samantha. Based on the evidence we've analyzed, it's clear that Mr. Michael was a victim, not a willing participant in the scheme. He'll have to answer some questions, but we don't expect him to be charged. Samantha felt an enormous weight lift from her shoulders. Finally, everything was clear. And the men who kidnapped us? They've all been arrested. They were part of an organization laundering money for several companies in the city. With your cooperation, we've managed to arrest the entire network. Over the following weeks, Samantha and Michael gave detailed statements to the federal police. Michael was officially cleared of any voluntary involvement in the money laundering scheme. David and Richard were each sentenced to 15 years in prison. The other members of the criminal organization received sentences ranging from 5 to 20 years. Michael's company was temporarily closed for investigation, but after a few months it was allowed to reopen under new management with full transparency. Samantha returned to her job as HR director at a tech company. Michael decided to start a new business, this time in compliance consulting, helping companies avoid legal problems. Tommy continued living with his grandmother, but now had a formal job assisting Michael at his new company. Samantha and Michael had practically become his adoptive parents, ensuring he had opportunities to study and grow. Jennifer moved into a house near Samantha and Michael's, further strengthening the family bonds that had become so important during the crisis. The experience had profoundly changed Samantha and Michael's relationship. They now talked about everything. There were no more secrets between them. The trust that had been shaken during the events was rebuilt even stronger. 6 months after everything ended, Samantha and Michael took a trip back to the cabin in Lake Placid, this time not to hide evidence but to celebrate the second chance life had given them. "Do you regret anything?" Michael asked as they walked along the trail near the cabin. "I don't regret fighting for us," Samantha replied, "but I regret letting our problems grow without talking about them." "I regret not trusting you from the start," Michael said. "If I had told you everything when I discovered the scheme, maybe we wouldn't have gone through all this. But maybe we needed to go through it to learn how to truly trust each other." They sat on the wooden bench in front of the cabin, the same spot where they'd shared so many happy moments over the years. "Samantha, I want to renew our wedding vows," Michael said suddenly. "Why?" "Because I feel like we're different people now, people who know each other better, who trust each other more. I want to start this new chapter of our lives officially." Samantha smiled. "I'd love that." They scheduled the vow renewal for their 15th wedding anniversary, which was in 2 months. The ceremony would be simple, with only close family and friends, including Tommy, who had become an inseparable part of their lives. Tommy now stayed with Samantha and Michael during the week, returning to his grandmother's only on weekends. He was attending a private school paid for by the couple and showing great intelligence and determination. Aunt Samantha, Tommy, said one day, "Do you think my parents will ever come back?" Samantha thought carefully before answering. She had discovered through social contacts that Tommy's parents had abandoned him and his grandmother to try to make a life in another state, and that they likely wouldn't return. "Tommy, we don't know what will happen in the future, but what we do know is that you have a family that loves you now. Me, Michael, and your grandma, and that will never change." "Are you really my real family?" asked Tommy with shining eyes. "Yes, we are," Samantha replied, hugging the boy. "Forever." Michael came home at that moment and found Samantha and Tommy embraced on the couch. "What's going on here?" he asked with a smile. "We're having a family moment," Samantha answered. Michael joined the hug. "These are the best moments," he said. That night, after Tommy went to sleep, Samantha and Michael talked about the possibility of officially adopting the boy. "Would his grandmother agree?" Michael asked. "I think so. She wants what's best for Tommy, and she knows he has more opportunities here. And Tommy, what does he want? He wants a family, and we're his family now." They decided to speak with Tommy's grandmother the following week about the adoption possibility. Mrs. Rose, Tommy's grandmother, was a 68-year-old woman who had worked as a cleaner ever since her grandson came to live with her. When Samantha and Michael explained their proposal, she became emotional. "You'd give Tommy everything I always wanted to give him but never could," she said with tears in her eyes. "He'll have an education, he'll have a future." "Mrs. Rose, you'll always be part of his family," Samantha said. "We want you to keep being his grandma, to keep being part of his life. And you can come live with us too if you'd like," Michael added. "We have the space and Tommy would be so happy." Mrs. Rose needed a few weeks to make her decision, but she ultimately agreed both to the adoption and to moving in with the couple. "I just want my grandson to be happy," she said. "And with you, I know he will be." The adoption process took a few months to finalize, but on the day of the court hearing, Samantha, Michael, and Tommy were beaming. "Now you're an official family," the judge said after signing the papers. Tommy, now 13, hugged Samantha and Michael. "Thank you for not giving up on me," he said. "We would never give up on you," Samantha replied. "You're the one who helped us find each other again." Samantha and Michael's vow renewal took place in a beautiful ceremony at the same church where they had married 15 years earlier. Tommy was the ring bearer, and Jennifer was the matron of honor. Mrs. Rose sat in the front row, proud of her new family. "Samantha," Michael said during the renewed vows, "you taught me that true love is trust, honesty, and standing together through hard times. I promise I'll never try to protect you by hiding the truth again. I promise we'll face everything together, as a family." "Michael," Samantha replied, "you taught me that it's worth fighting for the ones we love. I promise I'll never give up on us, no matter how hard things get. I promise we'll build a future based on trust and love." After the ceremony, they held a celebration at home with all the friends and family who had supported them through the difficult times. To Samantha and Michael, Jennifer toasted, who proved that true love can overcome any obstacle. And to Tommy, Michael added, who taught us that family isn't just about blood, it's about who we choose to love. And to all of us, Samantha said, who learned that the truth can be painful, but it's always better than lies. They toasted under the starry sky at home, surrounded by the people they loved. 2 years later, Samantha and Michael opened a small consulting firm to help people with complicated legal situations. They used their experience to help other families going through similar problems to what they had faced. Tommy, now 15, was an exemplary student and helped with the business during school breaks. He had developed a special talent for finding information and solving problems, skills he had learned during the adventure that brought them together. Aunt Samantha. Tommy said one day, "Do you think if I hadn't seen Uncle Michael that day at the cemetery, you two would have found each other another way?" Samantha thought about the question. "I think so, Tommy. When two people are meant to be together, the universe always finds a way to bring them together. Even when things seem impossible. Especially when things seem impossible." Mrs. Rose, now 70, had become the family matriarch. She cooked for everyone, took care of the house, and was the official advisor for all family problems. "Mrs. Rose," Michael said one day, "do you regret anything about how everything happened?" "I regret taking so long to accept that Tommy deserved a better family than I could give him alone," she replied. "But I don't regret anything that happened after." "Why?" "Because now I don't just have a grandson. I have a daughter, a son-in-law, and a sister too." She looked at Jennifer. "My family grew in a way I never imagined." Jennifer had retired from teaching and now helped with Samantha and Michael's business. She discovered she had a talent for organizing documents and researching information and became a key part of the company. "Samantha," Jennifer said one day, "do you think Mom and Dad would be proud of how our family has grown?" "I'm sure they would. They always said family is what matters most in life. And now we have a big, close-knit family." "We do. And it all started with a brave boy who wasn't afraid to tell the truth." Samantha and Michael's business grew steadily. They helped dozens of families solve legal problems, always with honesty and transparency. One day they got a call from a lawyer representing victims of money laundering schemes. "We'd like to invite you to give a talk about your experiences," the lawyer said. "Many people who've been through similar situations feel alone and hopeless." Samantha and Michael accepted the invitation. The talk took place in a law school auditorium for students and victims of financial crimes. "The first thing I learned," Samantha told the audience, "is that you don't have to face problems alone. Asking for help isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of intelligence. And the second thing," Michael added, "is that the truth always comes out. You can try to hide it, you can try to run, but in the end, the truth always surfaces." "The third thing," Samantha said, "is that family is what you build, not necessarily what you're born into. The people who stand by you in tough times, those are your real family." After the talk, many people came to speak with them, sharing their own stories of struggle and resilience. "You've given me hope," a middle-aged woman said. "My husband is caught up in something similar, and I didn't know what to do." "The first thing is not to try to handle it alone," Samantha advised. "Seek professional help, reach out to family, lean on friends. You'll be surprised how many people will want to help. And document everything," Michael added. "Keep records, make copies, secure evidence. It can make all the difference." That night, on their way home, Samantha and Michael talked about how much their lives had changed. "Can you imagine 5 years ago that we'd be giving advice to others on how to overcome family problems?" asked Michael. "5 years ago, I never imagined we'd have family problems to overcome," replied Samantha. "But now I understand problems are part of life. What matters is how you handle them. And who you have to help you handle them." "Exactly." When they arrived home, Tommy was doing homework at the kitchen table, while Mrs. Rose prepared dinner and Jennifer organized some company documents. "How was the talk?" asked Tommy. "It went very well," said Samantha. "We spoke with many people, going through similar problems to what we faced." "Did you give good advice?" "We hope so." But the most important advice is something we learned from you. From me. What advice? That sometimes the most unlikely person has the solution to our problems, said Michael. If you hadn't been brave enough to speak to me that day at the cemetery, none of this would have happened. I just told the truth, said Tommy. And that's exactly it, said Samantha. Telling the truth, even when it seems impossible, anyone would believe it. That's the most important lesson from everything we've been through. Mrs. Rose served dinner, and they all sat together around the table. It was a nightly ritual, sharing their day, discussing struggles and wins, keeping the family close. Mrs. Rose, what was the best part of your day today? Asked Jennifer. It was a tradition they'd started, each sharing their day's highlight. The best part was seeing you all come home after the talk, said Mrs. Rose. It makes me proud knowing my family is helping others. How about you, Tommy? The best part was finishing my math homework. It was really hard, but I figured it out. Myself. Jennifer. The best part was organizing the new client files. I love seeing us help more and more people. Michael? The best part was watching the audience's faces when they realized they weren't alone in their struggles. And you, Samantha? Samantha looked around the table at the people she loved. The best part was coming home to all of you here, realizing we have a strong, united family, one that's weathered storms and come out even stronger. To family, Michael toasted, raising his juice glass. To family, they all echoed. After dinner, they gathered in the living room to watch a movie together, a Friday night tradition where they picked something everyone could enjoy. What are we watching tonight? Asked Tommy. How about an adventure film? Suggested Michael. I think we've had enough adventure for a lifetime, Samantha said, laughing. Maybe a romantic comedy. Or a family movie, offered Jennifer. Any film is fine, said Mrs. Rose. The important thing is being together. They ended up choosing a movie about a family overcoming hardships by sticking together. Ironic, but fitting for where they were now. During the film, Samantha glanced around the room, reflecting on how much life had changed. 5 years ago, she and Michael lived comfortably, but without much excitement or challenge. Now, their family was larger, more complex, but infinitely richer in love and experience. Michael, she whispered, are you happy? Happier than I ever imagined possible, he murmured back. And you? Completely happy, even with all we've been through. Or maybe because of it. Because of it? Because it brought us here, it brought us Tommy, brought Mrs. Rose into our family, brought Jennifer closer. It made us grow, as people and as a couple. It's true. If we hadn't gone through that crisis, maybe we would have never discovered what we're capable of when we work together. When the movie ended, everyone said goodbye and went to their rooms. Samantha and Michael stayed alone in the living room for a few minutes. Samantha, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you have any regrets about how things happened? Samantha thought carefully. I regret letting our problems get as bad as they did before we talked, but I don't regret anything we did after we decided to face everything together. Not even the dangerous moments. Not even those. Because they showed us what we're capable of, and they brought us our family. Michael agreed. Sometimes I think if Tommy hadn't shown up that day at the cemetery, I might have stayed hidden forever, afraid to trust you. But he did show up, and you trusted me. And here we are. Here we are. They went upstairs to their room, but first Samantha stopped by Tommy's room to say goodnight. Tommy, are you awake? I am, Aunt Samantha. Can I come in? Sure. Samantha sat on the edge of the bed. Tommy, I wanted to thank you again for everything you've done for us. Auntie, you've thanked me 1,000,000 times already. I know, but I want you to understand that you didn't just help us find each other. You taught us how to be a real family. How so? Before you came along, Michael and I were just a couple. Now we're a family, and that changed everything for the better. I learned a lot from you too. What did you learn? I learned that family isn't just about blood, it's about who chooses to stay together, who helps each other, who loves each other even when things get hard. That's right, and you'll always be part of our family no matter what happens. Even when I grow up and move out, even when you grow up, get married, have kids, you'll always be our son, and this will always be your home. Tommy smiled. Good night, Aunt Samantha. Good night, my son. Samantha left the room with a full heart. She had never imagined becoming a mother this way, but she couldn't be happier with how things turned out. In their bedroom, Michael was already in bed reading a book. "How's our son?" he asked. "Our son is fine, thoughtful but fine." What was he thinking about? Family. About how we became a real family. It's funny how a crisis can change everything for the better, isn't it? Yes, sometimes I think we needed to go through all that to get here. I agree. If everything had been easy, maybe we would have never discovered our true strength. Samantha lay down next to Michael. "Michael, what do you think will happen to us in the coming years?" "I don't know, but I know we'll face everything together as a family, and that gives me great peace." "Me too." They hugged and fell asleep peacefully, knowing they had built something solid and lasting. The next day was Saturday, and they had a tradition of making a special breakfast together. Mrs. Rose cooked her famous sugar bread, Jennifer made fresh drip coffee, Tommy helped set the table, and Samantha and Michael prepared fruits and juices. "This is my favorite part of the week," said Jennifer as she poured the coffee. "Mine too," agreed Tommy. "I love when we're all together without rushing." "To me, these breakfasts represent everything we've achieved," said Samantha. "Peace, unity, love, and lots of good food," added Michael, making everyone laugh. Mrs. Rose brought the warm bread from the oven. "When I was young and raising Tommy alone, I dreamed of moments like this," she said. "A full table, a happy family, laughter in the kitchen." "And now you have all that," said Samantha. "I do, and even more than I dreamed." They sat down to eat and talk about their weekend plans. "How about going to the park today?" suggested Michael. "It's been a while since we had a picnic." "I'd love that," said Tommy. "Can I invite some friends from school?" "Of course, the more the merrier." "What if we brought some new clients too?" suggested Jennifer. "That family going through problems similar to what you faced. Maybe it would be good for them to see it's possible to be happy again." Samantha thought it was an excellent idea. "I'll call them now." The Smith family had reached out to Samantha and Michael's company the previous week. The husband was being investigated for financial irregularities at his workplace, and they were going through a crisis similar to what Samantha and Michael had endured. "Hello, Mrs. Smith. This is Samantha. How are you? We're organizing a picnic in the park today and would love to invite you and the kids." "That's so kind, Samantha. But I'm not sure it's a good idea. We've been feeling a bit down lately." "That's exactly why it would be good. Sometimes we need time with people who understand what we're going through." "You're right. We'll come. Thank you for the invitation." Samantha hung up, pleased. "They're coming and bringing their 2 kids." "Perfect," said Michael. "The more the merrier." They spent the morning preparing food for the picnic. Mrs. Rose made sandwiches, Jennifer prepared salads, Samantha baked cakes, Michael bought sodas, and Tommy organized games and activities. "I love when the house feels like this, full of movement and preparation," said Mrs. Rose. "Me too," agreed Samantha. "It reminds me that family is about sharing moments, not just living together." At the park, they found the Smith family near the lake. The couple's children, 8 and 10 years old, were quiet and seemed sad. "How are you holding up?" asked Samantha, hugging Mrs. Smith. "Getting by. It's been hard, but we're trying to keep things normal for the kids." "We understand completely," said Michael. "We went through the exact same thing." "And how did you get through it?" "Mostly by sticking together as a family," Samantha replied, "and accepting help when we needed it." Tommy approached the Smith children. "Hi, I'm Tommy. Want to play frisbee?" The kids seemed to brighten a little at the offer. "Sure," said the older boy. Soon they were running around the park, tossing the frisbee and laughing. The adults sat on the blankets they'd brought and talked while watching the kids play. "It's amazing how children can adapt and find joy even in tough situations," remarked Mr. Smith. "So true," agreed Jennifer. "Tommy taught us a lot about that. Even during hard times, he always stayed optimistic." "How did you keep the family united during the crisis?" asked Mrs. Smith. "By talking about everything," Samantha answered. "Not hiding anything from each other, no matter how hard it was. And accepting it was all of our problem, not just Michael's," added Samantha. "Once we realized we were all in the same boat, it became easier to row together." "And how are you handling things?" Michael asked. "Here it's been tough," admitted Mr. Smith. Sometimes I feel guilty for putting my family in this situation, even though I know I didn't do anything wrong. I know exactly how that feels, said Michael. But you have to remember it's not your fault, and your family is by your side because they choose to be. What do you mean? Your wife could have walked away when she heard about the trouble. Your kids could have lost trust in you, but they chose to stay. That means they believe in you. Mrs. Smith took her husband's hand. It's true, we're together because we know you're an honest man. And together, you'll get through this, said Mrs. Rose. I've seen a lot in my life, and I can tell you that a united family overcomes any problem. The children came running back, breathless and happy. Mom, can I have a sandwich? Asked the Smith girl. Of course, sweetheart. They formed a big circle on the grass and shared all the food they had brought. The Smith children seemed much livelier, and their parents were more relaxed too. You know, this is the first day in weeks I've truly been able to relax, said Mrs. Smith. Sometimes we need to step away from our worries to remember there's still joy in the world, said Samantha. And that there are people who care and are willing to help, added Jennifer. After eating, the children went back to playing, now including some other boys and girls from the park. Look how quickly they made friends, observed Michael. That's just how kids are, said Tommy, who at 15 already considered himself almost an adult. They don't overthink it, they just befriend each other. Maybe adults should learn from them, said Mr. Smith. True, agreed Samantha. We complicate things sometimes. As the sun began to set, they packed up and got ready to leave. Thank you for today, said Mrs. Smith, hugging Samantha. It did us all a lot of good. Any time. And remember, you're not alone in this. Can I call if I need to talk? Of course, any time. The Smith family left visibly more cheerful than when they had arrived. I think we did a good thing today, said Jennifer. We did, agreed Michael. And it also reminded me how lucky we are. How so? We had each other during our crisis. They're going through the same thing but with far less support. Then let's give them that support, said Samantha. Let's walk with them through the whole process. I like that idea, said Tommy. We could start a support group. A support group? Yeah, bring together families facing similar struggles. That way no one feels alone. Samantha and Michael exchanged glances. It was a brilliant idea. Tommy, you just had the best idea of the year, said Michael. Really? Really? We can start small with a few families and see how it goes. Can I help organize it? Tommy asked excitedly. Of course, you'll be our activities coordinator for kids and teens. Tommy beamed at the responsibility. I'll make a list of activities so the kids can do while the adults talk. Perfect, said Samantha, and we'll hold the first meeting next week. On the way home, they discussed how to set up the support group. We can use the meeting room at our office, Michael suggested. I can make tea and coffee for everyone, offered Mrs. Rose, and I can look for other families who might be interested, said Jennifer. Let's start small, said Samantha. First with the Smiths and 2 or 3 more families. If it works, we'll expand. What should we call the group? Asked Tommy. They thought for a few minutes. How about United Families? Michael suggested. I like it, said Samantha. Simple and clear. United Families, Tommy repeated. Perfect. When they got home, they sat in the living room to plan the group in more detail. Should we hold weekly meetings? Asked Jennifer. I think so, Samantha replied. At least at first, until people feel comfortable. And will there be activities for the kids too? Of course. They suffer just as much as adults, just differently, said Michael. I can teach some games I learned on the streets, offered Tommy. Games that help you forget your troubles for a while. Excellent, said Samantha. And I can talk about legal aspects. Michael can talk about financial ones. And I can talk about how to keep the family united during the crisis, said Mrs. Rose. And I can help with organization and research, added Jennifer. They spent the rest of the evening planning the details of the group. Samantha was moved to see how each family member had something important to contribute. You know what touches me the most about all this, she said. What? Everyone asked. It's seeing how our bad experience has turned into something that can help others, how our pain can be useful in easing someone else's. That's true, Michael agreed. If we hadn't gone through all that, we wouldn't have the experience needed to help now. Jas, sometimes the bad things that happen in life are preparation for the good things we'll do later, said Mrs. Rose with her years of wisdom. I like that saying, said Tommy. I'll write it in my notebook. Tommy had a habit of jotting down phrases that impressed him. He already had 3 notebooks full of thoughts he'd collected over the years. Can I see your notebook? Asked Samantha. Tommy went to get his current notebook and showed it to her. It contained all kinds of phrases, some funny, some deep, some motivational. Look at this one, Tommy pointed to a page. Family isn't just who you're born with, it's who chooses to stay with you. I wrote that the day you officially adopted me. Samantha felt her eyes well up. That's a beautiful phrase, Tommy. And this one, Tommy turned the page. Problems are like storms. They feel like they'll never end, but they always do. I wrote that when you were going through all those troubles. You're very wise for your age, said Michael. I learned from you. And from Grandma Rose too. Mrs. Rose smiled proudly. My grandson has always been observant. Even as a little boy, he paid attention to everything and learned from everything. And now he'll be able to teach other kids, said Jennifer. In the support group. I'm excited to start, said Tommy. The following week, they organized the first meeting of the United Families group. Besides the Smith family, they got in touch with 2 other families going through similar situations. The meeting took place in Samantha and Michael's office on a Thursday evening. Mrs. Rose had prepared tea, coffee, and cookies. Tommy had set up an area with games and activities for the kids. Good evening, everyone, Samantha said as they all arrived. Thank you for coming. Should we introduce ourselves? Each family briefly shared their situation. There were common threads in all their stories. Husbands caught up in legal troubles without being truly guilty. Families facing financial and emotional pressure. Children suffering because of the situation. The first thing we want to make clear, said Michael, is that no one here will be judged. We're all on the same side. And the second thing, Samantha added, is that we're not here to give specific legal or financial advice. We're here to offer emotional support and share experiences. One of the mothers raised her hand. How did you manage to keep hope during the hardest moments? By focusing on what we had, not what we were losing, Samantha replied. We had each other, and that was the most important thing. And remembering that problems are temporary, but family is forever, Michael added. Mrs. Rose stood up. Can I say something? I'm the oldest here, so I've been through a lot in life, and I can promise you there's no problem a united family can't overcome. How can you be so sure? Asked one of the fathers. Because I've seen families overcome much worse. War, hunger, serious illness, losing everything they had. But as long as they had each other, they always found a way to start again. The children were playing in a corner of the room under Tommy's supervision. Samantha noticed they were much more relaxed than they had been at the park the week before. Look at the children, said Samantha. They're already having fun. Already. Making friends, because they instinctively understand they're not alone. That's true, agreed one of the mothers. My daughter had been very withdrawn lately, but today she's laughing. The meeting lasted 2 hours. By the end, everyone agreed it had been very helpful and wanted to schedule the next one. Same time next week? Asked Samantha. Perfect, they answered in unison. After everyone left, Samantha's family gathered to reflect on how it had gone. What did you all think? Asked Samantha. I think it went really well, said Michael. You could tell they left in better spirits than when they arrived. And the kids loved it, added Tommy. They're already asking when the next meeting will be. For me, it was very moving, said Mrs. Rose. Seeing other families going through the same fears we faced reminded me how strong we are when we stand together. And you, Jennifer? Asked Samantha. I was impressed by their courage. It's not easy to come to an unfamiliar place and share such personal struggles. Samantha agreed. It had been truly touching to see how the families opened up to one another, sharing their fears and hopes. I think we'll need a bigger space soon, said Michael, if more families want to join. We could use the church hall where we renewed our vows, suggested Samantha. Father Patrick is always willing to help with community causes. Good idea, agreed Michael. I'll talk to him tomorrow. In the following weeks, the United Families group grew quickly. Word spread through lawyers, social workers, and by word of mouth. Soon, they had 15 families regularly attending the meetings. Samantha decided to structure the activities better. She created specific exercises to help families process their emotions and strengthen their bonds. "Today, we'll do a different exercise," Samantha said one Thursday evening. "Each family will write a letter to themselves to open a year from now." "What kind of letter?" asked Mrs. Smith. "A letter where you share how you're feeling now, your fears and your hopes for the future. A year from now, when you open it, you'll see how far you've come." The activity was deeply emotional. Many cried as they wrote, but they also smiled, imagining where they'd be in a year. Tommy had naturally become the leader of activities for children and teens. He created a smaller group that met at the same time as the adults, focusing on the specific needs of the young ones. "Kids need to talk about what they're feeling too," Tommy explained to Samantha, "but they do it better through play and drawing." "You're right. How did you learn that?" "I remember how I felt when I was younger and didn't fully understand what was happening in my family. I wanted to talk about it but didn't know how." Samantha felt proud of Tommy's maturity and sensitivity. At just 15, he showed a deep understanding of people's emotional needs. One day, Samantha received an unexpected call at the office. "Samantha Carter, this is Julia Williams from the city's Department of Social Services." "Hi, Julia. How can I help?" "We've heard about the work you're doing with United Families. We'd like to discuss a possible partnership." Samantha was surprised. They hadn't reached out to any official agencies. "What kind of partnership?" "We have many families who would benefit from the kind of support you provide. And you have an approach that works very well." "We're just people who went through a tough experience and want to help others." "Exactly. You have credibility because you lived through it. That makes all the difference." Samantha scheduled a meeting with Julia for the following week. She wanted to discuss the proposal with the family before making any decisions. "What do you all think?" Samantha asked that night after sharing the call. "I think it could be good," said Michael. "More resources mean we can help more families." "But it also means more bureaucracy," Jennifer pointed out, "and maybe less flexibility to do things our way." "What if they want to change how we run the meetings?" Tommy asked worriedly. "Those are valid concerns," Samantha said. "Let's hear the proposal first, then decide." Mrs. Rose, who had stayed quiet during the conversation, finally spoke. "Do you know what my opinion is on this?" "What is it, Grandma?" Tommy asked. "I think you should trust your instincts. If the partnership seems like it'll help families without harming what you've built, go for it. If it seems like it'll complicate more than help, don't." "As always, Mrs. Rose has the wisdom of experience," Michael said. The meeting with Julia took place at the Department of Social Services headquarters. Samantha and Michael went together, bringing a folder with information about the United Families group. "Look, we don't want to interfere with your work," Julia explained. "We just want to offer support, resources for materials, a bigger space if needed, and referrals for families who could benefit from the group." "And what would you expect in return?" Michael asked. "Just basic reports on how many families are served and what kind of activities you do. Nothing too detailed or invasive." Samantha and Michael exchanged glances. The proposal seemed honest and respectful. "Can you give us a few days to think it over?" Samantha asked. "Of course. There's no rush." On the way home, Samantha and Michael discussed the pros and cons of the partnership. "What do you think?" Michael asked. "I think Julia seems sincere, and if we can really help more families without losing our autonomy." "I liked her too. She seemed to understand that the group's success lies in its informality and authenticity. Let's talk to everyone at the next meeting. See what they think." The following Thursday, Samantha presented the Department of Social Services proposal to the group's families. "What do you all think? Should we accept the partnership?" Opinions were divided. Some thought it would be good to have more resources, while others feared government involvement might change the group's dynamic. "Can I give my opinion?" said Mr. Smith, who had become an informal spokesperson for the families. "Of course. I think what works here is precisely that you're just like us, ordinary people who faced problems and overcame them. If that doesn't change, it doesn't matter who's supporting us." "And do you think it could change?" Samantha asked. Only if you let it, one of the mothers replied. In the end, we're the ones who make the group. The government can offer support, but it can't change our essence. After much discussion, the group agreed to accept the partnership, but with clear conditions. Meetings would stay informal, families would have complete freedom to participate, or not, and no activities would be mandatory. Samantha called Julia the next day. We've decided to accept the partnership, but with a few conditions. Great, what conditions? Samantha explained the group's requirements. Perfect, Julia said. Those are exactly the conditions we expected. You can start using the neighborhood community hall next week. The move to the community hall opened up new possibilities. The space was much larger, allowing for parallel activities for different age groups. Tommy set up a corner just for teenagers where they could talk about their specific problems. Mrs. Rose created a group for grandparents and older relatives. Jennifer coordinated craft activities that helped people relax and facilitated informal conversations. We're becoming a real community, Michael observed during one of the meetings. It's true, Samantha agreed. And the best part is that families are helping each other even outside the meetings. The Smith family had grown especially close to Samantha's family. The Smith children were inseparable friends with Tommy, and the adults visited each other regularly. You saved our family, Mrs. Smith said to Samantha one Sunday afternoon when they were all gathered for lunch. We didn't save anything, Samantha replied. You saved yourselves. We were just there when you needed support. But without you, I don't know if we would have made it. And without you, our group wouldn't have grown and strengthened as it has. Mr. Smith had managed to resolve his legal issues with the help of the lawyer Samantha and Michael recommended. He had been completely cleared of the charges and got his job back. Now it's our turn to help other families, he said. We'd like to volunteer to speak with new families joining the group. We'd love that, Michael replied. The more people sharing experiences, the better. The United Families group kept growing. 6 months after the first meeting, they were serving over 50 families and had a waiting list. I think we need to consider expanding, Samantha said during a group coordination meeting. How so? Jennifer asked. Maybe creating groups in other neighborhoods, or specialized groups for specific types of issues. I like the idea, Tommy said. We could create a group just for teenagers, for example. And one for women facing challenges alone, suggested Mrs. Rose. Michael agreed. We have experience now, and we have people willing to help. Why not expand? They spent the following weeks planning the project's expansion. They decided to start with 2 new groups, one for teenagers and another for single mothers. The teen group would be coordinated by Tommy, with support from some young people who had been part of the original group. I want to create a place where teens can talk about how they feel when their families are going through problems, Tommy explained. Because sometimes adults forget that we suffer too. The group for single mothers would be led by Jennifer, who had researched extensively about the specific needs of this group. Women raising children alone face unique challenges, Jennifer explained. They need a space of their own to share experiences. Samantha felt proud seeing how each family member had found their own way to contribute to the project. The launch of the new groups took place at a simple ceremony in the community hall. Several local officials attended, including the city mayor. You're an example of how a community can organize to solve its own problems, the mayor said in his speech. Samantha thanked him but made sure to credit all the families involved in the project. We just created a space. The real difference is made by the people who have the courage to share their stories and support one another. After the ceremony, the family gathered at home to reflect on how far they'd come. 2 years ago, if someone had told me we'd be running support groups for dozens of families, I wouldn't have believed it, Samantha said. Auntie, and if someone had told me I'd be coordinating a group of teenagers, added Tommy, laughing. For me, the biggest surprise was discovering I have a knack for working with seniors, said Mrs. Rose. At 70 years old, I'm still learning new things about myself. And I found out I love researching and organizing social projects, said Jennifer. I'm thinking about taking a course on NGO management. Michael smiled. And I discovered that helping others is much more rewarding than just making money. Do you think we've reached where we wanted to be? Asked Samantha. I think we've gone far beyond where we imagined we wanted to be, replied Michael. How so? When this all started, I just wanted to sort out my legal issues and return to normal life. I never imagined we'd build this whole support network for other families. That's true, agreed Samantha. And I also didn't expect our family to grow so much and become so close. For me, said Tommy, the coolest part is knowing our tough story turned into something that helps others. Like all the problems we went through had a purpose. Mrs. Rose nodded wisely. In my experience, the most beautiful things in life come from the hardest times. It's like plants that grow in tough soil. They become stronger. A few months later, Samantha got an unexpected call. Mrs. Carter, this is Caroline Miller from Neighborhood Community TV. We'd like to do a feature on the United Families project. Samantha hesitated. They had always avoided publicity, preferring to grow organically through word of mouth. What kind of feature? A positive one, showing how the project helps families in the community. Nothing sensational, just an inspiring story. Can I talk it over with my family and get back to you? Of course, my number is... Samantha wrote down the contact and hung up, thoughtful. She wanted to discuss it with everyone before deciding. What do you all think? Samantha asked that evening. It could be good for attracting more volunteers, said Michael, and for showing other communities they can create similar projects. But it might also bring the wrong kind of attention, Jennifer considered. People who'd try to take advantage of the project for their own benefit. And it could make some families uncomfortable, added Tommy. Some might not want to be on TV. Those are valid concerns, said Samantha. How about we talk to the families first, see how they feel? At the next group meeting, Samantha presented the proposal from Community TV. What do you think? Should we do the feature? Opinions were split again. Some thought it would help the project, while others preferred to keep things low-key. Can I suggest something? Said Mr. Smith. Of course. How about asking the reporter to come to a meeting first? That way she can understand how the group works, and we can get to know her better. Great idea, Samantha agreed. Caroline Miller attended the next meeting. She was a young journalist in her 30s, with a straightforward and sincere manner that quickly won the group's trust. I don't want to do a story about you, she explained. I want to do a story with you, showing how you support each other. What would the focus be? Asked one of the mothers. The focus would be community strength, how ordinary people can come together to solve common problems. After talking with Caroline for nearly 2 hours, the group agreed to the feature, but with conditions. Families who didn't want to appear would be respected. No specific situations would be detailed without permission, and they'd have the right to review the piece before it aired. Caroline agreed to all their terms. The recording of the report took place during a regular group meeting. Caroline and the cameraman were discreet, capturing the natural moments of interaction between the families. Can you explain how the idea for the group came about? Caroline asked Samantha during an interview. Actually, it wasn't really an idea, Samantha replied. It was a necessity. When we were going through our own struggles, we realized how alone we felt. Once we overcame them, we wanted to make sure other families didn't feel the same way. And what role did each person in your family play in creating the project? Everyone found their own way to contribute naturally. Michael with legal and financial knowledge, me with organization and coordination, Jennifer with research and management, Tommy with activities for the youth, and Mrs. Rose with wisdom and emotional support. And Tommy, how do you feel being so young and already coordinating activities for other teenagers? I feel useful, Tommy answered, and I think the other kids trust me because they know I've been through similar struggles. The report aired 2 weeks later. It was a 15-minute segment that respectfully and inspiringly showcased the group's work. The response was immediate. Samantha received dozens of calls from people interested in joining the group or starting similar ones in other neighborhoods. I think we'll need a more structured organization system, Michael said after receiving the 20th call of the day. True, and we might need to train more coordinators, Samantha agreed. Tommy had an idea. What if we made a manual, like a guide on how to create and run family support groups? Brilliant, Jennifer said. I can research other similar projects and put together a comprehensive guide. And I can write about the emotional and psychological aspects, Samantha offered. I can handle the legal and financial parts, Michael said. And I can write about activities for kids and teens, Tommy added. And I can write about how seniors can contribute to family projects, Mrs. Rose said. They spent the next few months working on the manual. It was a joint effort that involved the whole family and several of the participating families in the group. We want this manual to be written by people who've lived the experience, Samantha explained, not by theoretical experts. The community. Family Support Manual was completed after 6 months of work. It was a 100-page book with practical guidance, real-life testimonials, and activity suggestions. How will we distribute it? Jennifer asked. We'll make it available for free online, Samantha said, and we'll also print copies for those who don't have internet access. The manual's launch took place at a ceremony in the community hall. Representatives from various neighborhoods in the city came, interested in starting similar groups. This manual represents everything we've learned, Samantha said in her launch speech. But remember, every community is unique. Use this as a guide, not a rigid rule. And also remember, Michael added, the most important thing isn't following procedures. It's creating real connections between people. After the manual's release, United Families groups sprang up in 12 different neighborhoods across the city. Samantha and her family were invited to consult and train the new coordinators. We're becoming experts in something that started by chance, Michael remarked during one of their trips to train coordinators. It wasn't by chance, Samantha corrected. It was out of necessity, and it still is. True, and I think that's the key to our success. Never forgetting we're doing this because it's needed, not because it's nice or prestigious. 2 years after the manual's release, they received a touching letter from a coordinator of a group in another state. Dear Carter family, I'm writing to let you know we've created a United Families group here in our city, following your manual. In just 1 year, we've already helped over 30 families overcome crises. I wanted you to know your work is spreading far beyond New York City. Thank you for showing how pain can be transformed into help for others. Samantha was moved as she read the letter. Do you realize what this means? She said to the family. It means our bad experience has turned into something much bigger than we imagined, Michael replied. It means Tommy was right when he said everything had a purpose, Jennifer added. And it means we don't know where all this will end, Tommy said excitedly. Grandma Rose smiled. To me, it means you've learned life's most important lesson, that our happiness grows when we help others find happiness too. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Samantha and Michael stayed on the porch talking about everything that had happened. Michael, do you have any regrets about the path our life took? None, and you? Not a single one. Sometimes I wonder what it would have been like if none of that had happened. If you'd never gotten involved with David and Richard, if we'd never gone through that crisis. And what would it be like? I think we'd be an ordinary couple, living an ordinary life. We wouldn't have Tommy, we wouldn't have Grandma Rose living with us, we wouldn't have discovered our ability to help others. It's ironic, isn't it? Our worst crisis turned into our greatest blessing. It's not ironic, it's life. The most beautiful things grow from the hardest struggles, like Grandma Rose always says. Michael took Samantha's hand. Samantha, I want to thank you. Thank me for what? For not giving up on me when everything seemed lost, for fighting to find me, for believing in me even when I didn't believe in myself. Michael, I'd do it all again, 1,000 times. I know. And that's what makes you the most amazing woman in the world. They sat in silence for a few minutes, watching the stars and listening to the neighborhood's nighttime sounds. Samantha, can I ask you something? Of course. If you could go back in time and prevent that whole crisis from happening, would you? Samantha thought for a long moment. No, she finally answered, I wouldn't. Why not? Because that crisis brought us here. It gave us Tommy. It gave us our extended family. It gave us our life's purpose. It made us better people. Even considering all the suffering we went through, especially considering the suffering, because that's what taught us to value what truly matters. Michael agreed. You're right. If we hadn't gone through all that, we'd never have discovered our true strength. And we'd never have learned that family is so much more than blood. It's choice, it's commitment, it's love in action. The next day, Samantha woke up with a new idea. Michael, what if we wrote a book? What kind of book? Telling our story, from the beginning until now, to show others that any family crisis can be overcome. Do you think people would be interested? I do, and I think it could help many people going through similar problems. Michael liked the idea, but it would have to be our true story. No embellishments or dramatization. Exactly. Raw, honest, real. They discussed the book idea with the rest of the family. I'd love to help write it, Tommy said. I could share my perspective on everything. That happened. And I could contribute the part about how the family grew stronger during the crisis, Jennifer offered. I can talk about how seniors can help solve family problems, said Mrs. Rose. Perfect, said Samantha. Let's make a book written by the whole family. They started working on the book immediately. Each person wrote their own version of events, and then they combined everything into a single narrative. The most interesting part is seeing how each of us remembers the same events differently, observed Michael during a writing session. That's true, agreed Samantha. For you, the hardest moment was when you uncovered the money laundering scheme. For me, it was when I thought you were dead. For me, it was when I didn't know if you'd believe me, said Tommy. And for me, it was when I realized my grandson was getting involved in something dangerous, added Mrs. Rose. And for me, it was when I saw my sister suffering and didn't know how to help, said Jennifer. Every perspective matters, said Samantha, because it shows how family crises affect each person differently. The book, United Family, How We Overcame the Greatest Crisis of Our Lives, took a year to complete. It was a 200-page narrative that told the whole story, from Michael's disappearance to the creation of the support groups. How are we going to publish it? Asked Jennifer. We'll look for a small publisher interested in real-life stories, Samantha replied. They sent the manuscript to several publishers. Hope Publishing responded 2 weeks later. We're very interested in publishing your book. It's an inspiring story that could help many families. We'd like to schedule a meeting to discuss the details. The meeting with the publisher went very well. The editor, Mr. Mark, had read the entire book and was genuinely moved by the story. You managed to write about tragedy and overcoming it without being sentimental or unrealistic, he said. It's rare to find such an authentic story. We just told what really happened, Samantha replied, and that's exactly what makes the difference. People are tired of made-up stories. They want real stories about real people. The book was published 6 months later. The launch took place at a bookstore in the city center, with all the families from the United Families groups in attendance. This book isn't just about us, Samantha said in her launch speech. It's about all families who have the courage to face their problems and come out stronger on the other side. And it's an invitation, Michael added. An invitation for other families to realize they're not alone and that there's always hope. The book was well received. It didn't become a national bestseller, but it sold well locally and helped spread the idea of family support groups. Samantha began receiving letters from readers across the country. I read your book and started a support group in my town. Your story gave me the courage to fight for my family. Thank you for showing how problems can turn into blessings. Each of these letters is worth more than any literary award, Samantha told Michael. I agree, because it means our story is really making a difference in people's lives. 3 years after the book's publication, Samantha and Michael received an unexpected invitation. We'd like to invite you to speak at the National Social Services Conference about innovative approaches to family support. Samantha was tempted to accept, but then remembered the rules they'd set from the beginning, to keep everything local and community-focused. Michael, what do you think? Accepting would be a chance to share our experience with a wider audience. But it would also take us away from our original focus. Remember, we decided not to seek national recognition. That's true. Our strength lies in simplicity and closeness to the community. They decided to decline the invitation, but suggested that the conference organizers reach out to group coordinators in other cities who could represent the movement. I think we made the right decision, said Michael, after sending the reply. I think so too. Our place is here, working directly with the families in our community. Tommy, now 18 and in his final year of high school, made a decision that surprised the family. I've decided I want to study psychology. Why? Asked Samantha. Because I want to better understand how to help families in crisis. I want to professionalize what I've learned working with you. And do you want to keep working with the United Families Project? Of course, but I want to learn more so I can help even better. Samantha felt proud of Tommy's maturity. We'll support you in everything, son. And once you graduate, you can modernize our methods with academic knowledge, suggested Michael. Exactly. I can combine practical experience with theoretical knowledge. Mrs. Rose, now 73, remained active and engaged. You know, I've been thinking about writing a book too, she said one day. About what? Asked Jennifer. About how seniors can contribute to solving family problems. I have so many stories to tell. We love the idea, said Samantha, and we'll help you write it. Actually, I've already started. Want to see? Mrs. Rose brought out a notebook filled with handwritten notes. The Wisdom of Years, How Seniors Can Strengthen Families. Samantha read the title aloud. That's beautiful, Mrs. Rose. It's still just the beginning, but I'm enjoying writing. We'll turn this into a real book, said Michael. It could be so helpful for other families with seniors. Jennifer had found her calling, working with the project. She decided to retire from teaching and dedicate herself fully to coordinating the support groups. I've discovered this is my true talent, she said, organizing people and projects to help others. And you're excellent at it, Samantha agreed. The groups have run so much smoother since you took over as general coordinator. Thank you. It's rewarding to know I've found my place in the world at 50. Samantha and Michael continued working at their consulting firm, but now focused exclusively on cases involving families in complex legal situations. We've specialized in what we do best, Michael explained to a new client, helping families facing problems like the ones we went through. And we always combine legal advice with emotional support, added Samantha. Because legal issues always affect the whole family. One day, 5 years after everything began, Samantha was sorting through old documents when she found the note Michael had left for her in the cabin in Lake Placid. She reread it and smiled. The evidence is hidden in our special place, you know where. Michael, she called, come see this. Michael came downstairs and saw the note in Samantha's hands. Wow, it's been so long, and he said, do you remember how desperate you were to find that evidence? I do. And now I'm thinking, that evidence saved our lives. But it wasn't the only important evidence. What do you mean? The most important evidence was what we discovered about ourselves, about our ability to love, forgive, and start over. Michael nodded. You're right. The documented evidence proved my legal innocence, but the emotional evidence proved our innocence as a family. And it proved we deserved a second chance. Samantha placed the note in a frame on the bookshelf, not as a reminder of hard times, but as a reminder that there's always hope. Tommy walked into the living room at that moment, coming back from college. What are you all doing? Remembering the past, answered Samantha, and planning the future, added Michael. What kind of future? A future where we keep helping families, where our family keeps growing and getting stronger, where the problems we face keep turning into solutions for other people. I like that future, said Tommy, smiling. Mrs. Rose appeared at the living room door. Can I interrupt? I just got an interesting call. From who? From a lady from upstate. She read our book and wants to start a United Families group in her town. But she wants to come here first to learn how it works. Of course she can come, said Samantha. When does she want to arrive? Next week, and she's not coming alone. She's bringing 5 more families. 5 families? Asked Michael, surprised. Yes, they organized themselves, pooled money for the trip, and want to spend a week here learning. Samantha was moved. Do you see? Our little local project is inspiring people from other states. And the best part, said Tommy, is that they're not waiting for someone else to solve their problems. They're taking initiative. Just like we did, agreed Michael. Jennifer walked into the room from the kitchen. Did I hear something about visitors? We need to get organized. We sure do, said Samantha. We're hosting 6 families from upstate next week. How wonderful. I'll prepare a special schedule. They can join our regular meetings and also have specific training sessions. And I can organize activities for the kids who come with them, offered Tommy. And I can cook for everyone, said Mrs. Rose. I love having guests. The following week, Samantha's house was full. The families from upstate stayed in nearby hotels, but spent the whole day participating in the project's activities. It's amazing how you've managed to create a real support network, said Mrs. Cathy, one of the visitors during a meeting. We didn't create anything, Samantha replied. We just provided a space. The families are the ones who build the connections. But how do you keep everything running? Isn't it a lot of work? It is work, Michael admitted. But it's work that matters. And when we do what matters, it doesn't feel like work. And do all of you dedicate yourselves to the project? Each of us has found our own way to contribute, explained Jennifer. It's not an obligation, it's a choice. The visiting families joined all the activities, general meetings, small groups, workshops, and even a community lunch on Sunday. You've given us so much more than we expected, said Mr. Joseph, another visitor at the farewell. We didn't just learn how to start a support group, we learned how to be a real family. And you learned the most important thing, said Mrs. Rose, that when a family is strong, it can help other families become strong too. After the families from upstate left, the house felt strangely quiet. I already missed the bustle, said Samantha. Me too, agreed Tommy. I liked having so many kids around. And I loved cooking for everyone, said Mrs. Rose. It reminded me of the days when I had a big family. Michael smiled. Technically, we do have a big family. It's just spread across different addresses. That's true, Samantha agreed. If we count all the families in our groups, we're a family of over 200 people. 200 people who met because we had the courage to ask for help when we needed it, Jennifer observed. And because a boy had the courage to speak the truth, even when it seemed impossible anyone would believe it, added Samantha, looking at Tommy with affection. Tommy blushed a little. I just did what I thought was right. And sometimes, doing what we think is right changes the world, said Michael. At least our world. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Samantha went to Tommy's room. Can I come in? Of course, Mom. Samantha sat on the edge of the bed. Tommy was 18 now, all grown up, but to her, he would always be the brave boy who had helped her find Michael. Tommy, can I ask you something? Sure. What's the most important thing you've learned in all these years we've been together? Tommy thought for a moment. I've learned that family isn't perfect. Family is a group of people who choose to stay together even when things get hard. Anything else? I've learned that helping others is the best way to heal our own wounds. And I've learned that problems can turn into blessings if we know what to do with them. Samantha smiled. You've learned well, my son. Mom, can I ask you something too? Of course. Do you regret anything? I regret taking so long to understand that family is about being present, not about being perfect. Anything else? I regret not valuing what truly matters sooner. And are you afraid of the future? Samantha thought carefully. I'm not afraid, I'm curious. I want to see how far our story will go. Me too, and I want to be part of all of it. You always will be, Tommy, forever. Samantha said goodnight and left the room. In the hallway she met Michael, who was also going to say goodnight to their son. I already did, said Samantha. How is he? Thoughtful, mature, happy. And you? I'm thoughtful, mature, and happy too. They went to their room. Before sleeping, Samantha looked out the window at the city lights. Michael, do you think our story is already over? What do you mean? Have we already lived the best we had to live? Or are there still more chapters ahead? Michael hugged. Samantha, I think our story will never end, because it's not just about us. It's about all the families we've touched, helped, inspired. And all the families we'll still touch. Exactly. So there's still a lot ahead. A lot. And I can't wait to see what comes next. Samantha nestled into Michael's arm and smiled. Me neither. 6 months later, they received a letter that would change the course of their lives once again. Dear Carter family, we are representatives from 10 towns in upstate New York. After reading your book and speaking with families who visited, we've decided to organize a statewide network of United Families groups. We'd like to invite you to a meeting where we can plan this expansion together. We don't want you to run everything. We want you to teach us how to run it ourselves. We await your response. Samantha read the letter aloud to the whole family. What do you all think? She asked. I think it's amazing, said Tommy. They don't want us to do their work for them. They want to learn how to do it themselves. It's the perfect approach, Michael agreed. Teach them to fish, don't just give them the fish. And it's still an organic expansion based on real community needs, Jennifer observed. To me, it's proof you got it right from the start, said Mrs. Rose. You planted seeds instead of trying to build empires. Samantha smiled. So, should we accept the invitation? Yes, they all answered, in unison. The meeting took place in a small town, with representatives from 12 towns. 2 more had joined after the initial invitation. Samantha and her family were welcomed like celebrities, but they made it clear they were there to learn as much as to teach. You have experiences that we don't, said Samantha at the opening of the meeting. Rural communities face different challenges than urban ones. And we want to create a network that respects these differences, added Michael. For 3 days, they worked together to create guidelines for the statewide network. The result was a document that established common principles, but allowed for local adaptations. Each city will coordinate its own groups, was the final decision. The network will serve to share experiences and resources, not to control or standardize. And we'll meet twice a year to evaluate how it's working, added one of the coordinators. Samantha was moved by the maturity and organization of the representatives. You've created something much better than we imagined, she said at the closing. A truly collaborative network. We learned from you, replied one of the coordinators. You showed us that the secret is to keep the focus on people, not structures. On the way back home, the family talked about everything that had happened. Do you see, said Michael, our small local experience has turned into a statewide network. And all of it organically, without imposition, without excessive bureaucracy, observed Jennifer. And the best part, each community keeps its identity and autonomy, added Tommy. For me, said Mrs. Rose, the most beautiful thing is seeing that you didn't want to control anything. You planted seeds and let them grow the way they needed to, Samantha agreed. I think that's the main lesson we learned, to trust people, to trust that they know what's best for their own communities. A few months after the meeting, Samantha received a call that deeply moved her. Samantha, this is Mr. David, coordinator of the Sacramento group. Hi, Mr. David. How are things over there? Very well. Our group already has 40 families, but I'm calling for another reason. What is it? One of the families in our group wants to meet you in person. It's a situation very similar to what you went through. Samantha felt her heart race. How is it similar? The husband disappeared 2 weeks ago. The whole family is searching. And yesterday a street boy told the wife he saw her husband alive. Samantha was moved. The situation was incredibly similar to what they had experienced. And does the wife believe the boy? At first she didn't, but after talking with us about your story, she decided to investigate. And you want us to talk to her? If possible. I think hearing you tell how you overcame a similar situation could help a lot. Of course, you can give her our number. Mrs. Rose's call came the next day. Mrs. Samantha, my name is Rose. I'm going through a situation very much like yours. Samantha talked with Rose for over an hour, sharing details of her own experience and giving practical advice. The first thing is not to lose hope, said Samantha, and the second is to accept help. You don't have to face this alone. But what if everyone thinks I'm crazy for believing a street boy? Then everyone has forgotten that children sometimes see things adults can't. Do you really think my husband could be alive? I think you need to investigate every possibility, and if he is alive, you need to find him. If not, at least you'll have certainty. Rose followed Samantha's advice. 2 weeks later, she called again. Samantha, I found my husband. He was hiding in a nearby town, afraid to come home because of trouble with loan sharks. Samantha was overcome with emotion. How is he? Scared, ashamed, but alive, and now we're facing the problems together as a family. That's wonderful, Rose. And the boy who helped you? Oh, he's part of our family now. We're taking care of him, paying for his school, giving him what he never had. Samantha hung up the phone with tears in her eyes. Michael, she called. Out. Come listen to something amazing. Samantha told the whole story to the family. It's like our story is repeating itself in other families, said Michael. It's not repetition, Tommy corrected. It's inspiration. Our story is inspiring others not to give up on their families. And it proves there are many brave children in the world, added Mrs. Rose. Children who have the courage to speak the truth when adults can't. To me, said Jennifer, this shows that our experience is truly worthwhile, that it can save other families. Samantha agreed. And it makes me think maybe our next project should focus specifically on street children. They see things no one else does. I like the idea, said Tommy. We could create a parallel project focused on giving these children a voice and support. Street voices, suggested Michael. Perfect, said Samantha. A project that recognizes and values the wisdom of children living on the streets. They spent the next few months developing the Street Voices project. The idea was to create spaces where street children and teens could share important information. They observed and received support and care in return. It's not charity, Samantha explained during the project presentation. It's partnership. They help us with important information. We help them with education and care. The first Street Voices Center opened in a space provided by the city. Tommy, now in his second year of psychology, took over as project coordinator. How do you feel taking on this responsibility? Samantha asked. Honored, Tommy replied, and prepared. After all, I was once one of those kids. Do you think your experience will help? I'm sure of it, because I'll speak their language. I'll understand what they're going through. The Street Voices Center started with 10 children. Within 6 months, there were 50. The children received meals, basic education, healthcare, and most importantly, they were listened to and respected. What impresses me the most, Tommy told Samantha, is how they flourish when they realize someone takes them seriously. It's the same thing that happened to you, Samantha observed. True. And now I can give other kids what you gave me. What's that? Hope, and the certainty that they matter. Mrs. Rose, now 75, became the official grandma of the Street Voices Center. She went there 3 times a week to tell stories and offer motherly advice to the children. These kids need someone to represent the family they don't have, she explained. And I have so much love to give. And the kids adore you, said Tommy. They always ask when Grandma Rose is coming. Jennifer handled the administrative side of the center, while Samantha and Michael provided legal and financial support. We're turning into a family of social projects, Michael remarked. And I couldn't be happier, Samantha replied. Each project naturally grows from the last one. 2 years after the Street Voices Center opened, they received an unexpected visitor. Remember me? Asked a well-dressed young man at the door. Tommy looked closely. Gabriel? Is that you, Gabriel? It was Gabriel, now 17, who had left the streets and was finishing high school. I came to thank you, Gabriel said, and to offer help. Thank us for what? Samantha asked. For showing that street kids can matter, that our voices can make a difference. How did you hear about our center? I read about you in the newspaper, and I remembered how you all treated me with respect that day at the hospital when I told you about the businessman's daughter. Samantha remembered. Gabriel was the boy who had helped them in one of their first experiences supporting families in crisis. And how do you want to help? I want to work here. I want to help other kids like you helped me. Tommy was moved. You'd be perfect to work with us. You can start whenever you want. Gabriel became one of the most effective coordinators at the center. His personal experience and his ability to connect with children were extraordinary. It's amazing, Samantha said to Michael. The people we help end up becoming people who help others. It's a virtuous cycle, Michael agreed. Every person we help multiplies our capacity to help, and so it grows endlessly. At that time, Samantha was 52, Michael was 55, Tommy was 20 and studying psychology, Jennifer was 55, and Mrs. Rose was 75. They were a mature, experienced family, completely dedicated to helping other families. "Sometimes I think," Samantha said one Sunday night as they all gathered for dinner, "what our lives would be like if none of that had happened." "It'd be a normal life," Michael replied. "Probably happy, but normal." "And it wouldn't have as much meaning," Tommy added. "Why?" "Because when our life only serves ourselves, it stays small. When it serves others too, it grows big." Mrs. Rose smiled. "My grandson's turned into a philosopher." "I learned from you all," Tommy said. "I learned that a life worth living is one that makes a difference. And a life that makes a difference is one that faces problems and turns them into solutions for others," Jennifer finished. Samantha looked around the table at the people she loved and felt deep gratitude. "Do you know what moves me the most about all this?" "What?" everyone asked. "That we started out trying to save our own family and ended up helping hundreds of other families save themselves too. And the best part," Michael said, "is we're not done yet. There's still so much ahead." "So much," Samantha agreed. "And I can hardly wait to see what comes next." They finished dinner talking about future plans, expanding the Street Voices Center to other neighborhoods, translating the family support manual into other languages, and creating an exchange program between groups in different cities. "Our family's become a social innovation lab," Michael joked. "And each of us has found our specific calling," Samantha observed. "I found mine working with kids and teens," Tommy said. "I found mine organizing and coordinating." "Projects?" Jennifer said. "I found mine being everyone's grandma," Mrs. Rose said, making everyone laugh. "And we found ours helping families in crisis," Samantha and Michael said together. When everyone went to bed, Samantha and Michael stayed in the living room a little longer, as they always did. "Michael, can I tell you a secret?" "Of course. Sometimes I feel like our story is too big to be true, like it's a really beautiful dream." "I know what you mean. I get that feeling too sometimes. But then I look around and see all the people who are part of our lives now, all the projects we've created, all the families we've helped, and then you realize it's all real." "Exactly. And that every hard moment we went through to get here was worth it." Michael hugged Samantha. "Samantha, can I ask you something?" "Always." "If you could leave a message for other families going through crises right now, what would it be?" Samantha thought carefully. "I'd say, don't give up. No matter how dark things seem, there's always hope, and there are always people willing to help if you have the courage to ask." "Anything else?" "Yes. I'd say problems can be transformative. They can destroy families, but they can also strengthen them in ways we'd never imagine. And a true family isn't one that never has problems. It's one that faces problems together and comes out stronger on the other side." Michael agreed. "What about you? What message would you leave?" "I'd say love isn't enough. It takes courage, honesty, forgiveness, and most of all, the willingness to change when necessary." "Anything else?" "Yes, that it's never too late to start over. Never too late to fix mistakes, to ask for forgiveness, to choose to be a better family." They sat in silence for a few minutes, each lost in their own thoughts. "Samantha, do you have any dreams you haven't achieved yet?" "I have one. What about you?" "I have one too. What's yours?" "I want to see Tommy graduate in psychology, working professionally with families. I want to see Mrs. Rose's book published. I want to see you happy and fulfilled. And I want our family to keep growing and helping other families." "Your dream is very similar to mine. What's yours?" "I want to grow old by your side, watching our family grow and multiply across generations. I want to see the projects we've created continue, even after we're no longer here to oversee them. And I want our story to inspire other families for years to come." Samantha smiled. "Our dreams are compatible, completely compatible." They walked upstairs hand in hand, like a couple in love who discovered that true love isn't about never facing problems, but about growing stronger with every challenge overcome. The next day, Samantha woke with a strange feeling. It wasn't bad, just different. "Michael, I have a hunch." "What kind of hunch?" I feel like something important is going to happen today. Good or bad? I don't know. But important. During breakfast, Samantha's hunch grew stronger. She couldn't focus on the family's conversation. "Mom, are you okay?" asked Tommy. "I'm fine, just a strange feeling." The phone rang at 10 in the morning. Samantha answered. "Samantha Carter." "Yes." "This is Mark from Hope Publishing. I have amazing news for you." "What news?" "Your book is being adapted into a TV series." Samantha nearly dropped the phone. "What do you mean?" "An independent production company is interested in your story. They want to make a 6-episode miniseries for an educational network." But we're just ordinary people. Our story isn't dramatic enough for TV." "Samantha, your story is exactly what people need to see right now. A real family overcoming real problems in a real way." Samantha called everyone to listen in. "They want you all to participate as consultants," Mark continued, "to make sure the story is told authentically." The family gathered in the living room to discuss the offer. "What do you all think?" Samantha asked. "I think it could be a chance to inspire even more families," said Michael. "But it could also be risky," Jennifer pointed out. "TV sometimes twists stories." "That's why they want our input as consultants," Tommy argued, "to make sure they don't distort it. And it'd be a way to share our message with a much bigger audience," added Mrs. Rose. They decided to accept, but with strict conditions. The story had to be told absolutely truthfully, no artificial drama could be added, and they'd have veto power over any changes. The production company agreed to all their terms. Filming the mini-series United Family took 6 months. Samantha and her family were actively involved in every step, from casting to reviewing the final script. "It's strange to see actors portraying our lives," Michael remarked during one of the filming sessions. "But they're doing a very respectful job," Samantha observed. "They're not exaggerating or dramatizing." The mini-series aired on a Sunday night and had surprisingly high ratings. It wasn't a national phenomenon, but it made a significant impact on those who watched. Samantha received hundreds of letters and emails from viewers. "Your story gave me the courage to fight for my marriage. I started a support group in my town after watching the series. Thank you for showing that it's possible to overcome any family crisis." "Each of these messages is worth more than any television award," Samantha told Michael. "I agree. And the most beautiful part is that these are real people with real problems, inspired by our real story." 6 months after the series aired, Samantha and Michael received an invitation that deeply moved them. "We'd like to invite you to speak at the National Meeting of Families in Reconstruction. The event will bring together families from across the country who are overcoming crises. You would be the keynote speakers." "This time I think we should accept," Samantha said. "Why?" "We've always turned down national invitations." "Because this isn't about us. It's about families facing problems right now who need to hear that overcoming them is possible. And it would be a chance to meet other families doing work similar to ours," Tommy added. They accepted the invitation. The national meeting took place in Washington, D.C. and gathered over 1,000 families from every state. Samantha and Michael shared their story in the main auditorium, before an emotional and attentive audience. "Our story isn't special because it's ours," Samantha said in her speech. "It's special because it's real, and because it shows that any family can overcome any crisis if they have love, courage, and determination. And most importantly," Michael added, "if they have the humility to ask for help when needed." After the talk, they were surrounded by dozens of families eager to share their own stories. "You gave us hope," said a woman from Pennsylvania. "Our family was falling apart, but after hearing your story, we decided to fight." "And did you succeed?" Samantha asked. "We did. It wasn't easy, but we did. And now we're helping other families in our community." Over the 3 days of the event, Samantha and her family heard dozens of inspiring stories of family resilience. "What amazes me most," Tommy said, "is that every family found their own way to overcome their struggles." "That's true," Samantha agreed. "There's no one-size-fits-all solution. Every family has to find their own path. But there is something they all share," Michael noted. "What?" "The decision not to give up. Every one of these families made the conscious choice to fight for themselves. On the last day of the meeting, an informal national network of families in reconstruction was formed. There was no bureaucratic structure, just a commitment to share experiences and support one another. "This is exactly how we started," Samantha said. "Informal, based on real needs, without unnecessary red tape." Back home, they reflected on everything they'd experienced at the meeting. "I felt like we found our tribe," Michael said. "What do you mean?" "Hundreds of families who've gone through experiences like ours and turned pain into strength." "That's true. And the most beautiful part is that each one has its own mission, its own way of helping others." Tommy was particularly thoughtful. "Mum, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Do you think our story will still be important 10, 20 years from now?" Samantha considered carefully. "I think the specific story might feel dated, but the principles we learned will continue to be important." "What principles?" "That family is a choice, not fate. That problems can strengthen rather than destroy. That it's never too late to start over. That asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. And that children sometimes see things adults can't," added Michael, smiling at Tommy. "And that seniors have wisdom that can save families," said Samantha, looking at Mrs. Rose. "And that sisters are friends for life," added Jennifer. "And that true love isn't the kind that never faces problems, but the kind that faces every problem together," Samantha finished. Mrs. Rose smiled. "And that the family you build can be stronger than the family you were born into." That night, Samantha did something she hadn't done in a long time. She wrote in her journal. She had stopped writing during the years of crisis and never picked up the habit again. "Dear journal," she wrote, "today I realized our story has reached a turning point. It's not the end, but it's the conclusion of a chapter. We started as a family in crisis and became a family that helps other families in crisis. We began trying to save ourselves and ended up helping save hundreds of other families. We started broken and became stronger than we ever were. If I could go back and prevent that crisis from happening, I wouldn't, because that crisis brought us here. And here is exactly where we want to be." She closed the journal and went to sleep beside Michael, her heart full of gratitude and hope for the future. The next morning, Samantha woke with a sense of wholeness she hadn't felt in years. It wasn't the end of their story, but it was the end of an important chapter. At breakfast, she looked around the table at her family. Michael, her partner, in life and mission. Tommy, the son of her heart who had grown into an honest and dedicated man. Jennifer, the sister who had become her best friend. And Mrs. Rose, the wise matriarch who kept them all united. "Do you know what I'm thinking?" Samantha said. "What?" they all asked. "I'm thinking we're living proof that it doesn't matter how your story starts. What matters is how you choose to keep it going." "And how did you choose to keep ours going?" Tommy asked. "We chose to keep it going with love, courage, honesty, and most of all, the willingness to turn our wounds into medicine for others." Michael took Samantha's hand, "And we chose to keep going together no matter what the future brings." "Always together," they all agreed. And so they continued. A family that had learned the best endings aren't the ones where everything is perfect, but the ones where everything is real, true, and built with love and hard work. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. 5 years had passed since the National Meeting of Families in Reconstruction. Samantha was now 57, Michael 60. Tommy had graduated with a degree in psychology and worked as a family therapist. Jennifer coordinated a network of 15 United Families groups in the metropolitan area. And Mrs. Rose, at 80, had become a respected figure in the community for her wisdom and dedication to social projects. The Street Voices Center had expanded to 5 locations, serving over 300 children and teens. Gabriel, now a social work graduate, was the project's general coordinator. "Sometimes I stop and look at everything we've built, and it feels surreal," Samantha remarked one Sunday afternoon as the family gathered in their backyard. "For me, what's most amazing," Tommy said, "is how everything grew organically. We never forced anything, never tried to control everything. Because we learned that the best things grow on their own when you create the right conditions, Michael remarked. And what were the right conditions we created? Jennifer asked. Unconditional love, unfiltered honesty, and the willingness to put the well-being of families above our egos, Samantha answered. Mrs. Rose, who was knitting a little sweater for one of the babies in the group's families, looked up. For me, the most important condition was the humility to accept that we always have something to learn from others. That's true, Tommy agreed. Every family we helped also taught us something. At that moment, the gate opened, and Gabriel stepped into the yard, accompanied by a young woman none of them knew. Hi everyone, Gabriel greeted. I want to introduce you to someone very special. The young woman, about 25, seemed nervous but determined. This is my fiancée, Kathy, Gabriel said, and she has an interesting story to tell. Kathy stepped forward shyly. Hi, Gabriel told me about you and I wanted to thank you in person. Thank us for what? Samantha asked, intrigued. Because you saved my family without even knowing it. How so? 3 years ago, my parents were divorcing after 20 years of marriage. My mom was devastated. My dad had moved out and I didn't know what to do. Samantha and Michael exchanged glances, sensing where the story was headed. And then, Samantha encouraged, then my mom found your book in a bookstore. She read it and decided to look for a United Families group in our city. And did she find one? She did. And not only did she join the group, but she convinced my dad to join too. And did it work? More than worked. They not only stayed together but are more in love now than when they got married. Samantha felt her eyes well up. And do they know you came to see us? They do. They wanted to come too, but my mom is away on business, and my dad was taking care of my little brother. But they sent a message, Gabriel added. What message? That you proved miracles exist, and sometimes miracles have a name. United Family. Mrs. Rose stopped knitting and looked at Kathy intently. Sweetheart, did you start a group in your city? We did. We already have 12 families participating. And is it working well? Perfectly. We follow your manual but adapt it to our local reality. Michael smiled. That's exactly the spirit we wanted. Each community adapting the principles to their own reality. And how about you two? Tommy asked Gabriel and Kathy. We're engaged, Gabriel replied, grinning. How wonderful, Samantha exclaimed. When's the wedding? In 6 months. And we'd like to ask you to be our godparents. Samantha was moved. Gabriel was like a son to them, having grown up in the project and now working side by side with the family. It would be an honor, Samantha answered. For us too, Michael added. They spent the rest of the afternoon talking about wedding plans, Kathy's city's United Families group, and how the projects kept growing and spreading. You know what moves me most about all this? Samantha said when Gabriel and Kathy left. What? Everyone asked. Seeing our story multiply into other people's stories, every family we help becomes able to help others. It's like a chain reaction of good, Tommy observed. Exactly, and there's no telling where it will end. That night, Samantha and Michael talked about Gabriel and Kathy's request for them to be godparents. Do you think we're becoming patriarchs of a big extended family? Michael asked. I think so, Samantha answered, and I feel honored by that. Why? Because it means the people we've touched over the years consider us family. And family is about loving and being loved, not about blood. That's true, and I think Mrs. Rose was right when she said the families we build can be stronger than the ones we're born into. Gabriel and Kathy's wedding was a beautiful and emotional celebration. The ceremony took place at the church, where Samantha and Michael had renewed their vows, and the reception was held in the community hall where the United Families group meetings took place. It's perfect, Samantha said to Michael during the reception. They're getting married surrounded by the family they chose, in the place where so many families have grown stronger. And look how many families came to the wedding, Michael observed. The reception was filled with families who participated in the groups, former kids from the Street Voices Center who were now adults, project coordinators from other cities, and all the people who were part of the vast support network that had grown over the years. During the couple's waltz, Samantha got emotional watching Gabriel and Kathy dance. Remember when Gabriel first came to the center at 12 years? old, distrustful of everything and everyone?" she whispered to Michael. "I do. And now look at him. Graduated, working, getting married, happy. It's proof that it doesn't matter how you start in life. It matters who you meet along the way and who you choose to become." Mrs. Rose, who was sitting beside them, also watched the waltz with emotion. "Do you know what my greatest joy in all of this is?" she said. "What?" Samantha and Michael asked. "Knowing that I'll die leaving the world a little better than I found it." "Mrs. Rose, don't talk about dying," Samantha protested. "My dear, at 80 years old you have to talk about these things, but I say it without sadness, I say it with joy, because I know everything we built together will keep going long after I'm gone." Michael took Mrs. Rose's hand. "You're right. We'll all die leaving the world better, and that's all anyone could want in life." Jennifer, who was sitting across the table, raised her glass. "A toast," she said, "to all the families that grew stronger, to all the children who were cared for, to all the projects that were born, and to all the miracles still to come." "To family," Samantha said. "To family," everyone repeated. 3 months after Gabriel and Kathy's wedding, Samantha woke up on a Saturday morning with a strange feeling. It was similar to what she'd felt the day they learned about the book being adapted for television, but different. "Michael, I have a feeling again. Good or bad? Different. Like something very important is about to happen." During breakfast, the feeling grew stronger. Samantha could barely eat. "Mom, you look pale," Tommy noticed. "I'm fine, just have this odd feeling." The phone rang at 9. Samantha answered with some apprehension. "Samantha Carter." "Yes. This is Dr. Christine from Manhattan General Hospital. Could you come here right away?" Samantha's heart raced. "What happened? Is it someone in my family?" "No, ma'am. It's about a girl who's here. She's asking to speak to you." "A girl? I don't know any girl in the hospital. She says she knows you, and that she has something very important to tell you." Confused, Samantha agreed to go. Michael insisted on coming with her. At the hospital, they were taken to the room of a girl about 10 years old, thin, and looking like she'd been through a lot. "Are you Mr. Michael and Mrs. Samantha?" the girl asked as soon as she saw them. "Yes, we are," Samantha replied, puzzled. "How do you know us?" "I live on the street near the Street Voices Center. I always see you there, and I know Tommy and Gabriel. And what did you want to talk to us about?" The girl looked around, making sure no one else was listening. "I know where a family is that everyone's looking for." Samantha and Michael exchanged glances. "What family?" "A family that disappeared 2 weeks ago. The mother, father, and 2 little kids. The police are searching, the news is talking about them, but no one can find them." "And you know where they are?" "Yes. They're hiding in an abandoned building on the east side. But they're not hiding because they did anything wrong." "Why are they hiding?" "Because the father owes money to loan sharks, and they threatened to hurt the whole family if he didn't pay. So they ran away and are hiding until they can get the money." Samantha felt a familiar chill. It was a situation very similar to what they had lived through years ago. "How do you know this?" "Because I help them. I bring them food, medicine when they need it. The mother is sick, and the boys are scared." "And why haven't you told the police?" "Because they asked me not to. They're afraid if the police find out, the loan sharks will figure out where they are." Michael leaned forward. "And why are you telling us?" "Because I heard you help families in trouble, and that you're not police, not government, just good people who know how to keep secrets." Samantha felt a wave of emotion. Once again, a child was trusting them with information that could save a family. "What's your name?" "Mary, but everyone calls me Lizzie." "Lizzie, can you take us to this family?" "I can." "But will you really help them? You won't turn them into anyone?" "We'll really help," Samantha promised. "How would you like us to help?" "They need a safe place to stay while they sort things out with the loan sharks, and the mother needs a doctor." Samantha and Michael exchanged glances again. It was as if history was repeating itself, but now they were on the other side. They were the ones who could help a desperate family. "Lizzie, when are you leaving the hospital?" "This afternoon. I was only here because I passed out on the street from hunger, but I'm better now. Do you want to come to our house? We can take care of you while we help this family." "Really? You'd do that? Of course, and that way you can show us where the family is and we can help everyone together. Lizzie smiled for the first time since they'd arrived. I'd really like that. It's been a long time since I slept in a real bed. Samantha spoke with the doctors and found out Lizzie was fine, just malnourished. She'd been found passed, out on the street and taken to the hospital by someone who saw her. Lizzie has no known family, the hospital social worker explained. She's been living on the streets for at least 2 years. Can we take her home with us? Samantha asked. Do you have experience with street children? We do. We run a center that helps kids in that situation. The social worker checked Samantha's documents and released Lizzie to go with them temporarily. Let's go home first, Samantha told Lizzie in the car. You need to eat, shower, rest a little. Then we'll go after the family. What if something happens to them in the meantime? Lizzie, a few hours won't make a difference, and you need to be strong to help us help them. At home, Grandma Rose welcomed Lizzie as if she were her own granddaughter. Sweetheart, you're so thin, come eat something. While Lizzie showered and ate, Samantha told the family about the situation. It's incredible, Tommy said. It's like our story is repeating, but now we're the ones who can help. And this time, we have experience and resources, Jennifer added. What are we going to do? Grandma Rose asked. First, let's find this family and assess the situation, replied Samantha. Then we'll see how we can help. They can stay here at our house temporarily, offered Michael. We have the space. And we can use our network to help with the loan sharks, suggested Tommy. Once Lizzie had finished eating and resting, they set out to search for the missing family. Lizzie guided them through the streets and alleys of the east side until they reached an abandoned building. They're on the 3rd floor, whispered Lizzie. Apartment 302. Samantha and Michael carefully climbed the stairs. The building was in terrible condition, with trash scattered everywhere and a strong smell of mold. Smith family, Samantha called softly at the door of apartment 302. Who is it? Answered a frightened woman's voice from inside. We're friends of Lizzie. She said you need help. The door cracked open, and a woman in her 30s eyed them with suspicion. Who are you? My name is Samantha. This is my husband, Michael. We help families going through tough times. What kind of help? The kind you need. A safe place to stay, medical care, support to sort out your problems. The woman hesitated for a moment, but finally opened the door. Inside the abandoned apartment, Samantha was transported back to her own darkest days. A man around 35, clearly depressed, 2 small children, dirty and scared, and the woman who was visibly ill. My name is Susan, the woman said. This is my husband, Robert, and these are our children, Matthew and Anna. Lizzie told us about your situation, Samantha said gently, and we want to help. Are you with the police? Robert asked suspiciously. No, we're just people who've been through something similar to what you're facing, and we know how hard it is. How is it similar? Michael stepped forward. A few. Years ago, I got caught up in legal trouble that put my family in danger. We had to hide, and we went through some very difficult times. And you managed to fix it? We did, with the help of good people who came into our lives. And now, we want to be those good people for you, Samantha added. Susan began to cry. We've been here for 2 weeks. I'm sick. The kids are scared and we don't know what to do anymore. You don't have to stay here anymore, Samantha said. You can come to our house while we sort things out. But the loan sharks, we'll handle the loan sharks too. We have connections. We've dealt with this kind of situation before. Robert looked at Susan, then at the children, and finally at Samantha and Michael. Why would you do this for us? You don't even know us. Because someone did it for us. When we needed it, Samantha replied. And because we believe people should help each other. And because we know you'd do the same for others if you were in a position to help, Michael added. The Smith family accepted the offer and went to Samantha's home. They were settled in the guest room, while Lizzie stayed in Tommy's old room. He now lived in his own apartment. It's like our house has become a refuge for families in crisis, remarked Mrs. Rose as she prepared food for everyone. And I couldn't be happier about it, Samantha replied. In the following days, Samantha and Michael worked to resolve the Smith family's situation. Through their legal contacts, they They negotiated with the loan sharks and set up a safe payment plan. Susan was taken to the doctor and found out she had an infection that could easily be treated with antibiotics. The children were temporarily enrolled in a nearby school. "In 2 weeks you solved problems we couldn't figure out for months," said David to Samantha. "It wasn't our doing," replied Samantha. "It was the result of the experience we've gathered over the years and the network of good people we've met." "And you'll create that same network for yourselves," added Michael. "You'll meet people, build connections, and become able to help other families." "How can you be so sure?" "Because we've seen it happen dozens of times. A family that's helped becomes a family that helps." Lizzie had adjusted perfectly to the house. She and Mrs. Rose had formed a special bond, and the girl was attending school for the first time in her life. "Will Lizzie stay with us forever?" Mrs. Rose asked Samantha. "If she wants to, yes. We've already spoken with the social worker, and they think it would be the best solution for her." "And does she want to?" "She does. Yesterday she asked if she could call me Mom." Mrs. Rose smiled. "Our family is growing again." "It is, and always in the most natural way possible." The Smith family stayed at Samantha's house for a month until they could reorganize their lives. When they left, they were already part of the United Families group and had volunteered to help other families in similar situations. "You saved us," said Susan at their farewell. "We don't know how to thank you." "Help other families," replied Samantha. "That's the best way to thank us. We'll do that, we promise." A few weeks after the Smiths left, Samantha received an emotional call. "Samantha, it's Susan Smith." "Hi, Susan. How are you all?" "We're good, really." "Good, but I'm calling to tell you something amazing." "What?" "Remember how you said a family that's helped becomes a family that helps?" "I do." "Well, yesterday our neighbor came to us desperate because her husband was being blackmailed at work. And you know what we did?" "What?" "We brought her to the United Families group, and today she's already feeling stronger and more confident." Samantha was moved. "Look at that. You're already helping others." "And now we understand why you do this. The feeling of being able to help someone going through what you've been through is indescribable. That's exactly the feeling that's driven us all these years. And now it drives us too." After hanging up, Samantha told Michael about the conversation. "Another family in the virtuous cycle," he said, "and so it grows endlessly. Endlessly." That night, Samantha and Michael were talking on the porch when Lizzie appeared. "Can I stay here with you?" "Of course, sweetheart," replied Samantha. Lizzie sat between them. "Can I ask something?" "Always." "Why did you bring me to live here? I'm just a street kid." Samantha hugged Lizzie. "First, you're not just a street kid. You're Lizzie, an important and special person. Second, we brought you because we know every child deserves a family to love them. And third," added Michael, "because you helped us help the Smiths. You're our partner, not our charity." "And fourth," said Samantha, "because our family is more beautiful and stronger with you in it." Lizzie smiled. "I love you." "We love you too," Samantha and Michael replied together. A few months later, Samantha was organizing documents when she found an old photo, the first picture of the United Families group, taken right after its creation. In the photo was Samantha, Michael, Tommy, Jennifer, Mrs. Rose, and the first 5 families who joined the project. She called the whole family to see it. "Look at this," she said, "and our first official photo." "Wow, there were so few of us," Tommy remarked. "And look how new we were to all this," added Jennifer. "What strikes me the most," said Michael, "is the look of hope mixed with uncertainty we all had." "That's true," agreed Samantha. "We knew we wanted to help, but we weren't sure if it would work." "And it worked beyond all expectations," said Mrs. Rose. "It did, and it still does." Lizzie looked at the photo curiously. "Can I ask something?" "Of course." "How did you know it would work?" Samantha thought for a moment. "We didn't know if it would work. We just knew we had to try." "And that it was the right thing to do," added Michael. "And sometimes doing the right thing is enough, even when you don't know the outcome," Samantha finished. "I like that," said Lizzie. "I'll write it in my notebook." Lizzie had adopted Tommy's, habit of jotting down phrases that moved her. "What other phrases have you written?" asked Tommy. Lizzie fetched her notebook and read some notes. "Family is who chooses to stay together in hard times. Helping others is the best way to heal your own wounds. Every child deserves someone who believes in them. Problems can turn into blessings if you know what to do with them." "Those are very wise words," said Mrs. Rose. "You're learning well." "I'm learning from the best family in the world," Lizzie replied. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Samantha stayed in the living room looking at the old photo and thinking about everything that had happened. Michael came downstairs and found her like that. "What are you thinking about?" "I'm thinking that if someone had told me 10 years ago our life would be like this today, I wouldn't have believed it." "Why?" "Because it was too good to be true. A united family, social projects thriving, dozens of families being helped, children growing up happy and safe. But it is true, and it's the result of our work and our choices." "Yes, and I'm so grateful for everything." "Me too." Samantha hugged Michael. "Michael, can I tell you a secret?" "Always." "Sometimes I'm afraid this is all just a beautiful dream, and I'll wake up to find none of it ever happened." Michael laughed. "I get that. Sometimes I feel that way too. But then I look around and see everything we've built, all the people we've touched, all the lives we've changed. And then you realize it's all real." "Exactly. And that every hard moment we went through to get here was worth it." They held each other in silence for a few minutes. "Samantha, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "If you could live your life over, would you change anything?" Samantha thought carefully. "I would. I'd start valuing what truly matters sooner. I'd start helping others sooner, and most of all, I'd start being honest about my feelings and fears sooner." "Anything else?" "Yes. I'd give more chances to people like Tommy and Lizzie, kids who just need someone to believe in them." "What about you? Would you change anything?" "I would. I'd be more humble sooner. I'd ask for help when I needed it instead of trying to handle everything alone. And I'd trust you more. But in the end, do you think you'd make very different choices?" asked a voice behind them. They turned and saw Lizzie coming down the stairs. "Couldn't sleep?" asked Samantha. "I did, but I woke up. I heard you talking and got curious." "Come here," said Michael, making room. On the couch. Lizzie sat between them. "So, would you make very different choices?" Samantha and Michael exchanged glances. "I don't think so," answered Samantha. "In the end, I think we'd still arrive at the same place." "Why?" "Because the most important choices we made were based on love. And love always leads you to the right place, even if the path is hard." "And what were the most important choices?" "Choosing to stay together when things got tough," said Michael. "Choosing to trust each other. Choosing to adopt you and Tommy. Choosing to help other families. And always choosing to do what we believed was right even when it was hard," added Samantha. Lizzie smiled. "So you don't regret anything?" "We regret the mistakes we made," replied Samantha. "But we don't regret the important choices." "And do you think I'll make good choices in my life?" "We're sure of it," said Michael, "because you're already making good choices. You chose to trust us, you chose to study, you chose to help others. And most importantly," added Samantha, "you chose to be part of a family. That's always a good choice." The three of them sat together on the couch, hugging, looking at the old photo and thinking about the future. "You know what I want to be when I grow up?" said Lizzie after a few minutes. "What?" asked Samantha and Michael. "I want to be like you. I want to have a beautiful family and help other families too." "You'll make it," said Samantha, "and we'll be here to help however you need." "Forever?" "Forever." And so they continued, a family that had learned the best moments. In life aren't the ones without problems, but the ones where you have people you love by your side to face any challenge. The end of the story. Now tell us what you thought of the story and where you're watching from. If you have something to share with us, leave your sincere words in the comments. Do you think Samantha made the right decisions throughout the journey? We'd love to read your thoughts on how this family managed to turn such a deep crisis into strength to help so many other families. Thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other heartwarming stories like this one.